Here's Mike Gill.
A Friday edition of the Sports Bash starts right now. What's going on, everybody? A happy hour Friday here on the Sports Bash. Good to have you with us as we take you till 6 o'clock. So much to dive into. Well, the draft came and went for the first night anyway, and it was a wild one. The Philadelphia Eagles did what I said yesterday at the end of the show. They would trade up, and that's what they ended up doing. They end up with Devonta Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner. They do so in a way that I did not predict. And in fact, I said a lot that I just did not see them trading with New York or Dallas. The three of them got involved in stuff that I mentioned a lot on the show that we're going to bring up today here on the Sports Bet. So let's get into it, all right? So much to dive into. Number one, if you follow me on Twitter, at Mike Gill Show, you will see a little bit of my reaction. I am a little torn by what happened last night, and I will get into it here in just a second. But first, this is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, and you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Live video as we see the video stream is starting to fill up. If you're listening on the radio, you can text our text board, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. We'll open the phone lines up a little today if you want to jump in on the phone, 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. You know, there are certain things that we like to open up the phones for. Reaction to games, you know, an Eagles game, reaction to something like this on the draft. So if you want to get involved on the phones, I will open up the phones today. Something that we don't do all the time, but it's something that I think, you know, if you want to talk about this draft tonight and the reaction, because I think the reaction is going to be interesting. I just was having a conversation with somebody before. Today should be interesting. Why is that? Because the mindset is, how could you not like what the Eagles did last night? And I said, believe it or not, they're out there. Believe it or not, there are people out there who do not like what the Eagles did. I don't know how, but I'm coming across them. I have a couple theories as to why. You know, the whole, I just don't like Howie Roseman, so therefore I can't give him 1% of credit for anything. Whether I like it or not, I have to say I don't, because I just don't like Roseman, and I don't want to give him credit for actually doing something that you really do deep down inside like. But there is a split divide of people who said, I don't know what they're doing. I don't like what they did. This, to me, I don't know how you don't like it. They had the 6th pick. The report came out when they made the trade from 6 to 12 that Howie Roseman had the intel that the Cincinnati Bengals were going to Bengal it up and not take the offensive lineman Penei Sewell, and that they were going to take Jamar Chase, which meant what? The Eagles at 6 were not getting the players that you guys wanted. They did not get Pitts. Number 6, Miami Dolphins, did not get Pitts. They did not get Chase. Just the way that the report stated. Roseman had the intel that the Bengals were going to take Chase, and therefore the player that the Eagles wanted at 6, Jamar Chase, they were not going to get. So they moved back to 12. Well, then it was, well, why would they move back just into the top 10 if they already had number 6? They should have just stayed at 6. They got a player that I don't know how anybody has a problem with. I mean, you got the Heisman Trophy winner. Look, I keep hearing about his size, and I get it. He's small, and that could be the one knock on him. Deshaun Jackson's 5'10", 170 pounds, soaking wet. And when he is at his best, Deshaun Jackson, he's not as good as Devonta Smith is. He wasn't as a productive player as Devonta Smith is. And he terrorized this league for about 8 years. He's still, when he's on the field, one of the most unstoppable deep threats in the league. When he can actually get on the field, now keep in mind, Deshaun Jackson's in his 30s now, and he's still running by guys. Devonta Smith is a bigger, version and a better version, a more polished version. Deshaun Jackson's not a great route runner. He's not a great catch radius guy. He's a burner. He's a one pattern down the field, beat you off the ball. Devonta Smith is a polished version of Deshaun Jackson. I liken him to Marvin Harrison. I think this guy is going to be excellent. And the reason I like him with this situation is, and I've said this before, is because of Sirianni. I think Sirianni is the difference with these receivers, especially getting Smith. Now, as for the trade, the one part about the trade, I'm not surprised about the trade. I said yesterday at the end of the show, what do I think will happen? I think the Eagles will end up trading up. I thought they would trade up. See, the board shifted when the two corners went back to back. That changed everything. The two corners going back to back changed the whole complexion of the night. I don't think anybody saw that. And if you did, bravo to you. But the fact that Horn went 8 and Surtain went 9, the Cowboys had to call an audible. They called the audible. The Eagles jumped over the Giants. The Giants wanted Smith. Period, point blank. The New York Football Giants wanted Devonta Smith. That's who they wanted. Now, here's where I'm torn. The problem that I had, and I said it all week on this show, and I said, if I'm the Eagles, I would call the Bears and I would demand a first-round pick. And the Giants made the deal that I talked about all week long. The Giants made the deal that I talked about all week long. They got the first-round pick. They have the extra pick in next year's draft. And that, to me, is a great day for the New York Football Giants. They got Kadarius Toney at 20. He's a weapon, a guy that they can use similarly to what they wanted to do with Devonta Smith, who's the guy they wanted. They wanted Devonta Smith. Make no mistake about it. That's who the Giants wanted. When they traded out of that spot to go down to 20, it's not because of the extra pick. Sure, that helped. It's because the Eagles took the guy they wanted. They obviously wanted a weapon for Daniel Jones because they reached on Toney, who many people thought would be going in the second round. Dallas ends up with Micah Parsons. Great pick for Dallas, although they have no corner. I mean, that thing blew up in their face last night. I think the Cowboys of the three teams in that little NFC East gauntlet got the shortest end of the stick. I didn't like what Washington did at 19. They went defense. I certainly didn't think they needed to go on the defensive side of the ball. If I'm Washington in that spot, I got to get help on the offensive side of the ball. I thought of the night what the New York Giants did, dropping down to 20, getting the pick next year, and then taking Kadarius Toney. I thought that was maybe the best night of them all. I thought Philadelphia jumping over the Giants to get what I thought was probably the second best wide receiver in the draft. Depends on the day. One day you like Waddle. The other day you like Smith. Obviously, Sirianni knows what fits better for him. Waddle went at 6. They traded up for Smith, which tells me pretty much that they had Smith ranked higher than they did Waddle. Because I don't know that, they ended up moving up to get Smith. That tells me they had him ranked pretty high on their board. For them to take the chance to give up the extra third-round pick to jump 2 spots to go make sure they got Smith, they had Smith ranked, in my opinion, higher on the board than they did Waddle. So they got the guy they wanted with the extra pick that we told you about that they were going to use. People said, well, why would they trade back in? They got an extra first-round pick next year. That's why. They got an extra first-round pick next year, and the third-round pick that they got in the trade with the Colts, they used to move up to jump over the Giants. I thought they had about as good a night as you can ask for if you're an Eagles fan. So if you don't like it, tell me why. Please explain to me. I am all ears. I am all ears to listen to why you don't like what they did last night. And just remember, now, I said I am torn. I like the pick of Devonta Smith. I have no problem with ending up with this. Though, I am torn that if they just didn't make that move, stayed at 12, and made the phone call to the Chicago Bears, would I rather have made the trade to go back to 20, and then I end up with, say, Kadarius Toney or Rashad Bateman? That is what I'm torn on. If you look at what happened right in that 20 range, when if you would have moved back to 20, now it doesn't preclude you from then moving yourself back up. You still had that third round pick if you just stayed there. But if you move back to the 20 spot, right, you could have got Kwity Paye. You could have taken Kadarius Toney. You could have got Kwity Paye. You could have taken Caleb Farley. They're really Newsome. You could have taken Newsome in that spot. Rashad Bateman in that spot. So that's where I'm a little torn. 609-403-0973. Text board. Mike, I'm irrationally angry the Eagles didn't make the same deal the Giants did with the Bears. What a haul they got. Curious to hear your thoughts. Is Smith worth it? I think Smith is worth it. This is why I'm torn. I agree with the text. I said all week I would make the call with the Bears and trade back and get the 4th first-round pick next year because I think next year's draft you're going to have a lot more talent. 4 picks next year, pick number 20 this year, plus you still would have had a 2nd and 2/3, so you would have gotten some good talent in this year's draft. And then I would have tried to use my later round picks this year to continue to kind of push my way up. But I definitely like Smith. I'm not knocking that. I think they did a great job, but I just will wonder, what if you stayed at 12? Because you weren't getting Devonta Smith there. You just weren't. The Giants were taking him at 11. As soon as you took Smith, the Giants bailed out of that spot. 609-403-0973. Text board open. Mike, when you're going through a rebuild, I don't like trading up and giving up a pick for a receiver. They have 11 picks. They're not making every single pick. I mean, come on. You're smarter than that. Going in, you're not picking 11 guys. I mean, that's well documented. So the reason you have 11 picks is so that you have the flexibility to move up. That's the whole point. The receiver thing, yeah, I don't necessarily think you have to take a wide receiver, but I definitely think at that spot, that was the best player available to them because the 2 corners were gone. What else were they going to take in that spot? That's why, to me, it made sense because if they stay at 12 with the 2 corners off the board, what are you left with? So they went and said, this is the best player on the board. What if we stay at 12? See, that's why, to me, I wouldn't have stayed at 12. I would have taken the call from the Bears and got out of that spot. Because if I stayed at 12 and the 2 corners were off the board and Smith wasn't there, I'm left with what? Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater, Vera Tucker. I don't want to be in that game. So, no, I don't agree with that text message. The last 3 years, the Eagles have used 2 number 1 picks on a 2nd and a 3rd to get Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, J.J. Whiteside. Not good enough. Well, that remains to be seen. Jalen Reagor, we have no idea. He was hurt most of last year, and I continue to echo. I believe that Doug Peterson and the front office, Howie Roseman in the front office, now they might be completely wrong, but I think their belief was that Jalen Reagor and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Travis Fulgham, for that matter, are better wide receivers than Doug Peterson was able to get out of them. That this group of coaches will get more out of those receivers than the previous regime did. When you're going through a rebuild, as you tweeted, text it there, that's why I don't mind moving back from 6 to 12 because you got the extra first-round pick. That's why you move back. But you also move back so you got the extra pick so that you can have the ability to go get the guy you want. When you have 11 picks in the draft, you're not making 11 picks. You're not making 11 picks. You know that. I know that. Well, you probably don't know that. You're not making 11 picks. It's not happening. 609-403-0973. Chris is on 97.3 ESPN. What's up, Chris?
Hey, what's going on? How are you doing today?
All is well, man.
So last night, first off, what Howie did to accumulate the 11 picks, that was genius. I was scared going into the draft because I didn't know how are we going to pick 11 people? And then I know what the fans wanted, but once once we made the trade for Dallas and I saw the CBs go off, I'm like, what's going to happen? And then I saw the trade, and then I saw Dallas getting, I'm like, Dallas is going to pick Parsons. We're going to get Smith. And really, you can't be upset with that. That's exactly what everybody wanted. I mean, me personally, I would have loved to have Parsons because I really think we have never really had a transcendent linebacker, and I think he would be that. But I do also am really intrigued with Sirianni's coaching because I think our wide receivers were bad because Doug Peterson wasn't coaching them.
Well, and I think that's what the Eagles front office believes too, Chris. I think in fact, Roseman insinuated that, saying that we are not closing the book on our former draft classes. We can't wait to see our new staff get their hands on them. And every receiver who has been coached by Sirianni, they all rave about the guy, about how good of a teacher he is.
Yeah, I'm like, his energy is great. It's definitely something the city wants, but I just think there was just so much pain being removed 4 years from a Super Bowl and now being basically the worst team in the division. It's just, a lot of people can't grasp behind that, it's just tough, and everybody wants to put blame on somebody.
Put it this way, Chris, and thanks for the call, man. You just said something. Being the worst team in the division, and everybody wants to place blame because you're not used to being the worst. That's how good this team has been. The Eagles have been so consistent. They've always been good that you don't know how to handle a down year. So when they have a down year, what happens? We get irrational. They have a down year. We don't know what to do. They're the worst. He's the worst. It's the worst. He's the worst. The worst this, the worst that. No, you had one down year. You had one bad year. If they have multiple down years, that's when you can start blaming this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy. They haven't had multiple down years. Because they're having one down year, now we're going to blow it up and change everything. I thought they did a great job last night. I think they have played this offseason very well. They were very hamstrung at the salary cap, which you can blame them for. A little bit of that had to do with COVID and the fact that the salary cap got slashed a whole heck of a lot. But that being said, they should take some blame in the fact that they overpaid some of these guys and some of the structures of the contracts were bad. Some of that's because they, won that Super Bowl and they went for it. But that being said, everything they've done this offseason, they brought in 2 veteran players at very under market value in Eric Wilson and Anthony Harris. Both guys are going to start right away for you. And now they moved from 6 to 12 to get a first-round pick in next year's draft. They now have 3 potential first-round picks in next year's draft. They move up 2 spots and get maybe the best wide receiver in the entire draft class. And they did it by jumping over a division rival who wanted that player. Now, I thought the Giants did a good job in recouping, moving back to 20, getting the first-round pick from the Bears. I love their trade. And I'm torn as to whether or not I would rather have Philadelphia make that deal. That's all. All right, we're just getting started. Jeff Kerr on the other side. He's going to join me for the rest of the hour. We're going to go through the draft, the hits, the misses, the likes, the hates. Brought to you by Matt Platt Nissan. The all-new Matt Platt Nissan is now open. Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Next to Home Depot. Online, mattplattnissan.com. Filling up the comments section, I see a lot of people watching the show. Harris, hey, Mike, do you think at 37, Samuel Jr. is an option? Or because we signed safeties, they probably don't go safety? Moig is in play. I have 5 options for the Eagles at 37 that I like at 97.3 ESPN.com. I think Moig is one of them. I know they need a safety. They got Harris. They got McLeod. Can't depend on McLeod right now. No, they need a safety. No doubt about it. Samuel's in play too. The other guys I like, I'll mention them coming up. Kerr on the other side. We are just getting started on a Friday. It's Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash. All right, Friday edition. The text board is very active. If you're watching the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, the live video stream is very active as well. We appreciate everybody watching the show. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, let me go through some of the Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter comments. Jalen, Howie was an absolute mastermind in this draft. To get Smith and a first when most people would have taken him at 6 is incredible. We finally have a star and some excitement on this team. You know, that's the that is the big takeaway, is that they didn't have to, you know, a player that a lot of people thought they might be interested in at number 6 was there for them and was available for them to jump to number 10 and get, and they still have that first round pick for next year. That's the big thing. All right, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, going to join me in just a second here as we're getting him the video stream and getting him on the board, and we will go through a lot of your comments. We'll have Jeff kind of give his thoughts. I know, Jeff, I believe, from what I remember from yesterday, that Jeff is a big fan of Devonta Smith. So we'll get his thoughts on that. David says Smith was a good pick, a surprise pick from Roseman. I didn't think the draft would go the way the top 10 went. I didn't think the Eagles would have to move up like they did to get him, but they got a great wide receiver and walked away with another first rounder. Yeah, I can't, believe it when I tell you, I know people who do not like this situation, what the Eagles did. And I said, I believe they just are the people who don't want to give Howie Roseman any credit. They just hate him so much that they refuse to say he did a good job. And they are the people who think the Eagles did not do well. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, the draft, night 1 in the books. It had some twists. It had some turns. All right, let's get into it, man. All right, let's start with the pick. They trade. It's the one thing that I think I was really off base on in this, that Philly and Dallas and New York wouldn't play in the sandbox together, and yet Philly and Dallas make the trade. Why did it happen?
Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, I got to pat myself on the back here because I did say the Eagles were going to trade up, and that was who they were going to take. I didn't think they were going to trade with the Dallas Cowboys to do it. But as soon as Denver picked Surtain, Surtain. Sorry, for some reason I thought they picked Horn. I'm like, wait a minute, no, they picked Surtain. So as soon as Denver picked him, I'm like, all right, this is it. The Eagles are going to do it. And they had to do it because the Giants wanted Devonta Smith. This was the only choice for them. And when I was talking to my colleague, Patrick Walker, who covers the Cowboys for CBS Sports, he was telling me that Dallas was actually kind of thinking of moving down because they thought they could get Parsons later in the draft at 12. But they said, you know what, we're here, let's get him. And that's how the deal came into fruition. And, the Eagles are happy they got Devonta Smith. The Cowboys are happy they got Micah Parsons because there was no reason for them to get him at 10. And the Giants ultimately were the big loser in this because they couldn't get the guy they wanted. So, yeah, they got a future first-round pick from the Chicago Bears who traded up and got Justin Fields, who, in my opinion, maybe the Giants should have gotten because he's better than Daniel Jones anyway.
Right. I see. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. Let's start here. I was very intrigued. We talked about this. If the Eagles stayed at 12, could they have made the trade with the Bears?
That's the thing. It's if they stayed at 12, and we're going to assume the Giants took Devonta Smith, I think they would make the trade. I think they would have traded down.
Right. So they would have got a 4th first-round pick and then picked at 20, and then they could have been in the Kwity Paye, Kadarius Toney, Newsome, Caleb Farley. They could have been in that business. Yeah,
exactly. You know what? Kwity Paye might have been the pick at 20 for them because he went to the Colts, I think, of 21. I think that's where the Colts ultimately picked. So Kwity Paye went down a lot farther than I thought he was going to. But I just think that explained the lack of defensive line talent in this draft. Because if you notice, Mike, it was really weird. I thought for sure 5 quarterbacks were going to go in the top 9, and it just didn't happen. Carolina, I just think they decided, hey, look, we're going to take a cornerback here because we need one.
That was a little bit of a curveball, though, right? Them taking a corner.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked at it. After they drafted J.C. Horn, I'm like, oh boy, that now the Eagles might be able to get one of these skill position guys. I wasn't shocked the Dolphins drafted Jalen Waddle after Cincinnati took Chase. I thought it was going to be between Waddle or Smith, and I was kind of relieved they took Waddle. I'm like, all right, this is starting to happen. This is starting to come into fruition here. The Eagles were going to trade up and get their guy, and I thought Detroit maybe would trade down, but you know what? I the way I looked at it, Detroit needed an offensive line the worst way. You can't pass up on Penei Sewell, and Brad Holmes said that last night. There was just no way we were going to do that. So that made a lot of sense. But then once you got past Denver, I thought for sure Denver was going to take Justin Fields at 9, and they didn't. And I don't blame them for taking Surtain because they needed a cornerback too. So now we're like, okay, when are these guys going to go? And this draft is going to get really crazy. And I'm like, wait, could the Eagles actually get Justin Fields at 12? It looked like that was going to be the case.
You know what? My phone was blowing up at that moment, Jeff. And my roommate from college said, the Eagles made a trade. What are they doing? And I responded, I think they're taking Fields. And I was like, oh, my God, please don't do this. I know you like Fields, and I know you would have taken him. I got to give Hurts a chance to play. You know what?
Exactly. And that's how I looked at it. It's like, look, and when I talked to Devonta Smith Wednesday, he was pretty convinced the Eagles were going to trade up and get him. And it looked like that's pretty much what they told him.
What convinced you that Smith was convinced the Eagles were going to make a move to get him?
Just when I talked to him about the Eagles and he said, it's a great organization. I really would like the chance to be reunited with Jalen Hurts again. And just pretty much just those basic conversations, with him. It's like, okay, this guy's a little too excited to be playing with Jalen Hurts again. It's like, did the Eagles tell this guy something like, hey, look, we want you and we're going to make sure we get you? And it seemed like that was the case. And I think really it was more of, okay, where's Jamar Chase going to go? Where's Kyle Pitts going to go? Where's Jalen Waddle going to go? I think the Eagles were completely fine with Jalen Waddle, but I think Devonta Smith was the guy they wanted.
I agree with that 100%. And 2 things. One, the Eagles caught a big break, PR-wise, nightmare of Chase going 6. He wasn't on the board at 6. Neither was Pitts. So them getting out of the 6th spot proved to be the right move.
Howie Roseman was right. And that's what I've been trying to tell people. Like, the Eagles knew the Bengals were going to do this. Joe Burrow was pushing for this. Like, this is what I got so upset over when Eagles fans were mad. I'm like, guys, they're not going to get Jamar Chase at 6. It's not going to happen. Cincinnati's going to take him. No, they're going to take a lineman. No, they're not. They're not going to take a lineman.
You talked about it all week, Jeff. The Bengals were going to Bengal this up. They should have taken.
They were going to Bengal this up, and they did. Yep.
They did. When I could not believe it when they made that pick, I almost drove off the side of the road and said they are the dumbest franchise ever. I can't believe it.
I do one mock draft a year, Mike, and I did it at the beginning of the month. And I said to myself, I should just take Jamar Chase to the Bengals at 5 because they're going to do this. And I said, no, I am going to do what teams need and what they should do, not what they're going to do. And that's why. And somehow I got a lot of mock draft picks right doing it that way. But the Cincinnati Bengals were one. I should have said, you know what? They're going to get Jamar Chase.
I had no doubt in my mind, and neither did Howie Roseman. So the Eagles make the right decision there. The report the day of the trade when the Eagles moved from 6 to 12 was that Roseman got wind that the Bengals were going to take Chase. That's who they wanted. So they said, we're not going to get him. We'll get out of that pick. If they don't get that information, who knows? They probably stay at that pick.
Yeah, they knew it. And, it was funny, Mike.
That tells me, Jeff, real quick, that tells me that they liked Smith more than they liked Waddle.
Yeah, that's exactly what's up. But I remember that day very vividly because I was working like a maniac, here pretty much over Jamar Chase going to the Bengals because that seemed to be a thing. And I'm like, oh, wait, what's going to happen now with the Eagles? Because they might not get Kyle Pitts. They might not get Jamar Chase. I think they initially wanted one of them. And they're like, you know what? Let's do it. And then the 49ers trade happened. And then the Dolphins trade happened again with the Eagles. And I'm like, everybody was so upset over this. I'm like, guys, you don't get it. The Eagles got a first-round pick. This is what the Eagles did, ultimately. They got Devonta Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, probably the second best wide receiver in this draft, who's going to be a stud in this league. I don't care. He's going to be a stud. And a 2022 first-round pick for what? The 12th pick and the 84th pick? Sign me up. Anything of the week.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, covers the NFL. Tell us about Smith. I was having a text conversation last night and this morning with a buddy of mine. He doesn't think Smith's, all that good. I mean, and he said the combination.
How does he determine that? Did he not watch college football?
I'll give probably not, but I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know if he's a big college football fan. But the combination of Smith and Rieger, like one isn't the number one. They're both just kind of secondary. I said, you don't know enough about Smith then, dude.
Devonta Smith is college football. It's kind of ironic I should say this because he's college football's best receiver since Jamar Chase. But him and Jamar Chase literally just shattered pretty much any record ever set. Like, if it wasn't for Joe Burrow,
let me ask you this. If Waddle's there, Smith's numbers aren't as eye-popping as they are.
No, they're not. Like, Devonta Smith went off when Jalen Waddle got hurt. Jalen Waddle was the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. And then, Devonta Smith was really good, though, the year before. He's been good since Jalen Hurts has been there.
Well, that's the thing, Jeff. In the game, the biggest game, when they had Ruggs and Judy, who'd they go to in the biggest moment of that game?
Devonta Smith. He was a freak in the national championship game. I'll tell you what, this is how good this Alabama wide receiver core was. Devonta Smith as a freshman was getting on the field with Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, and Jalen Waddle. He was finding ways to get on the football field. But that Alabama team was loaded. I don't know if you watched the Mississippi game, the Mississippi State game from 2017. Like, I was big in I'm not an Alabama football fan, but for my job, you have to watch the Alabama Crimson Tide every week. And that's what I did. And I knew with Devonta Smith for a long time, but I was shocked when Jalen Hurts went to Devonta Smith to win that football game with under 30 seconds to play. I'm like, wait a minute, all these players on the field, and he goes underneath to this guy, and I wasn't sure which cornerback it was. He's in the NFL, but I was like, wait a minute, Devonta Smith just did that? A true freshman? That was his first catch of the game. He played like 10 snaps the entire game. This guy's going to be a stud, and I was a trophy winner, but
where to me he is a dual threat in a multiple layers. To me, he's a taller, more polished version, just a better flat out wide receiver. Like a Deshaun, people talk about his size. Deshaun Jackson's 5'10", 175 pounds. He's tiny.
He's Marvin Harrison more. Or Antonio Brown. That's what he is.
That's who I bring him up to. But, think about Deshaun Jackson. It's 5'10", 175. When Deshaun Jackson is healthy, he's unstoppable. He goes down the field, and this guy is a way better route runner, way better hands, way better ability to catch the ball in traffic than Deshaun Jackson. Led the nation in screen yardage, so does something behind the line of scrimmage, down the field. And you know what's really impressive? When you heard Sirianni talk about X receivers and their ability to get off the line, Smith has upper body strength to get your hands off of him and get the separation and get himself movement. 4.3 speed. To me, he's just a bit. You mentioned Marvin Harrison, which I think is a great. That's kind of what I said. I said he reminds me a lot of Marvin Harrison, but here locally, he's a 6'1", way more polished version of what Jackson was. And Jackson was a hell of a player when he was at his best.
When your one weakness of this guy is he's 166 pounds, you got nothing. You are looking for any reason to not pick this guy at that point. I'm still kind of shocked he made it past 8. I really am, because he's that much of a difference maker. And I know Carolina didn't need him. I know Denver didn't need him. I thought the Detroit Lions would take, and I don't blame the Detroit Lions for not taking him, because they still fell to him.
The Detroit Lions, Jeff Kerr, put their big boy pants on. They finally put their big boy pants on.
I love it. I love what they're doing in Detroit, by the way. Brad Holmes and Campbell.
That is the graduation from, hey, we got to impress the fans to saying the boring pick is the right pick for a team like Detroit.
I will say this, talking to people in the state of Michigan, they are very, very happy today. That it is something different and you know what? I am so glad in this area, Howie Roseman finally picked the best available player. Didn't try to outsmart anybody. We're going to trade up and we are going to get this guy. And I was convinced when Devonta Smith basically told me that they are going to trade up and they are going to get me. And I'm like, good. I was all on board then.
Right. And look, Howie Roseman last night said it. We stayed true to our board and indicated that's not something they've done in the past. And he indicated today, look, we need a corner, but we're still going to take the best guy. So if they don't get a corner in round 2 tonight, that could be something. We'll get into that coming up in the next segment here about what's going on tonight. But I want to you look at Smith, to me, he is like that allows Rieger now to be the second guy. You don't need Rieger to be the number 1 guy. You draft a guy in the first round last year. Your mindset as a fan is he's got to be a number 1 wide receiver. The problem is Rieger's not a number 1 wide receiver. This guy's a number 1 wide receiver, and now they have guys who complement each other.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Jalen Reagor looks really, really good in this offense. And look, I know people get so upset about, they took another receiver early, and he's just covering up his mistakes. No, you're not covering up any mistake. You're getting a stud. You're getting the best player in college football last year. That's what you're getting. I don't understand it. I don't get the Howie Roseman hate right now.
Yeah, that's the difference, is they said this guy was simply too good to pass up. And we know New York will take him. We cannot deal with this guy against us twice a year. We're going to get him ourselves. You know why? Because we made a move earlier in the month that allows us to make this move to get that and prevent. And the Giants, you saw, immediately got right out of that spot. Absolutely. I thought, again, I can't understand how people don't. I'm just flabbergasted.
It's so nice that it happened to somebody else and it didn't happen to the Eagles. Last year, the Eagles wanted CeeDee Lamb, but they didn't trade up and get him. And they should have did it last year and jumped the Cowboys. And again, this is the maturation of Howie Roseman. It took him 10 years, but he finally has learned, hey look, to get the guy I want, I got to trade something.
We found out from the last time when he got thrown down the hallway that he learned from his mistakes, built a Super Bowl team, started to fall back into some bad habits. Maybe he's learned from them, and maybe this second time around again. We'll see. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports covers the NFL. We got another segment together because we looked at the first round. What do we like, what we didn't like? We'll get into that. And then tonight, we'll get some thoughts from Jeff on 37, round 3. The Eagles have the 37th pick, round 3. They only have 1 pick in round 3 now. They had 2. They traded 1 last night. We'll have that coming up next year on the Sports Bet. Jeff, hang in. We'll go round 2 and 3. And teams that you liked, teams that you didn't like, think about that. Sports Bash draft coverage is brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call. 4 convenient locations to serve you. Online, gmslaw.com. .246 on the Happy Hour Friday. Jeff Kerr, the NFL writer from CBS Sports, is here. All right, we got first-round coverage for you there. Give me a couple teams you liked, a couple teams you're still scratching your head on before we take a look ahead to tonight's round number 2 and 3.
Well, the Baltimore Ravens finally got Lamar Jackson something. Rashad Bateman, I really like that pick for them at number 27. Then I actually liked Jason Owe at 31. I know I'm a Penn State guy, but still, Jason Owe is going to fit really well in that defense. Baltimore had those 2 late first-round picks. I really did like the Rashad Bateman one, though. He just fell right into their lap at 27. That was a big pick for them. The Cowboys didn't need a linebacker, but again, you don't pass up on Micah Parsons. You just don't. So that was a good pick for them. A couple ones. I was a little head scratched with the Raiders pick. I just like the Raiders needed a lineman. I didn't think that was the guy they were going to go with. The Jets getting Elijah Vera Tucker. I like to protect Zach Wilson. That's a good pick. 49ers, Trey Lance. No, Justin Fields should have went third. I don't get it. Falcons, I really like. Kyle Pitts at 4.
Quick ones from me. I didn't like Washington's pick at 19. They went with the Davis, the inside linebacker. They had the second best defense in the league. They needed a playmaker.
Yeah, they needed a receiver.
Right. They needed something there. They should have traded back. They were at 19. They were in a tough spot. I don't think they wanted to reach on the wideout. I thought they reached on the linebacker on a defense that was already the second best in football last year. So I didn't like what they did. You mentioned, I thought Collins went a little high to Arizona there. I thought they needed a corner. They were at 16, so a tough spot to get a corner.
Pick for them, though, ultimately, because they're going to pair him with Isaiah Simmons. They do need defensive help, so I am.
Well, they did. I thought they needed more corner help than they needed taking Zaven Collins there. So that was one. Obviously, the Bengals, I thought that was awful. That was the worst pick of the night, them going with obviously Chase is going to be a great player for them, but the quarterback's going to get killed back there. So
he's already recovering from an injury.
Right. Exactly. Last night, Mike Tannenbaum on the radio broadcast said, when I was with the Jets in a 7-snap play, in 7 plays, we lost Pennington and Jay Fiedler within 7 snaps. He said, next year, I didn't care if John Elway was the first pick in that draft. We were taking a lineman. They took DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold in the first round that year. And
it was pretty well for them with Nick Mangold.
Right. It was the basis of them making the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row. I mean, they had a really good offensive line. And that shows you that if you have a really good offensive line, you can get to that spot with Mark Sanchez. So the line matters. I know people don't like to hear it. All right. 37. Let's talk second round tonight. Very interesting tonight. Some good players still on the board. Obviously, there always is. But I think tonight there's guys that we thought were going to go in round one, and the Eagles are way up at the top there. So give me a couple guys you have your eye on tonight at 37.
I can never pronounce his name, but the linebacker for Notre Dame, Jeremiah. I can never pronounce his last name. He's like Woody Pay. I can never pronounce his last name.
You're good on Woody Pay right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so maybe because I'm getting used to saying Woody Pay, and I'll probably
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
I call him JOK. So
everybody's calling him JOK.
Yeah, that's what I call him. And he's more than okay. He's a really good lineman. I actually had him going 17 to the Raiders.
Hybrid guy, 6'1", 215, kind of safety, kind of linebacker-ish.
He's perfect for the Eagles.
Oh, they like that kind of linebacker.
Yeah, so I wouldn't mind that. I think he's going to be one of the first people off the board, though.
All right, Asante Samuel Jr.
Yes, absolutely. Signing me up. If he has any play like his dad, the swag like his dad, which he does, I'm all for it. A little undersized, but he can play the outside.
What about Barrymore at 37? If you took Christian Barrymore,
I'll tell you what. Here's the thing. Remember we were talking about the Eagles getting him at 12. You can get him at 37. You need depth at defensive tackle. Why not? Look, Hassan Ridgeway gets hurt a lot. I know he's a very good number 3 defensive tackle, but you really don't have anything outside of Cox and Hargrave. You let go Malik Jackson. He's with the Cleveland Browns now. Why not? That's a good pick that's a great pick at 37.
All right, Trevor Merrick, you got a guy who's the best safety on the board. If he's there at 37,
I would take him. He's another one. I thought he'd go in the first round. I had him going in the late 20s, and they didn't take him. Again, kind of shocked he's still there, but it's just the way the board play. But this is what happens when the Green Bay Packers take Eric Gaines, which I didn't get. That was another one. I did not get that first round pick at all, and I like Eric Gaines.
I agree. Tyson Campbell, Georgia, Aziz Olajari.
Give me Aziz Olajari. I'll take him too. There are going to be some linebackers the Eagles get at 37.
Yeah, 37. Olajari is more of an edge guy. Campbell's a corner. I actually like Campbell better than I like Stokes, who went at 29 to Jacksonville. Elijah Moore, if you want to get another speed guy at wide receiver, he'll be available likely. Nick Bolton, the linebacker from Missouri. He's another interesting name.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, they're not going to draft a wide receiver, but there are a couple decent wide receivers on this board.
Oh, yeah.
If they fall 37 and team trades up, the Eagles could trade back and get a lot more draft capital.
Off of what Roseman said last night, he said, we're going to take the best guys. We know if we don't get back in the first round that we're going to be sitting there Friday morning, and we know we're going to get a really good player. Maybe it's at a position that can come in right away and fill need, but maybe it's just a guy that we know is going to be part of the core of our team going forward as we climb the mountain again. So Adam Kaplan was on our show last week and said, keep in mind, the draft is not about the current season. It's about seasons down the road.
Exactly.
So that's why you take the best player at 37. If it happens to be a wide receiver, you just take him.
Exactly. Yeah. Look, if Elijah Moore's still on the board, right? Like, I didn't miss that last night. I was so busy at the end. He's still on the board.
Yes.
I would take him at 37. I wouldn't even hesitate. You got him, Rager, Smith. You're set. I don't care. Look, this year is pretty much a wash anyway. Let's see what Jalen Hurts got. He's got all these weapons. We're good to go. Quite honestly, I would take him again. I think they're going to have a really tough decision at 37 because there are going to be players on their board they like, and I'm not, like I said, after round 2, I'm not exactly the greatest draft evaluator in the world, but there are about 30 guys right now I could see the Eagles taking with this 37 pick. And I don't think I'd be upset with either of them.
And keep in mind, the third round pick that they traded was not number 70. It was 84. So they held on.
That was the Colts pick.
Yes, they held on to the better of the 2 third round picks with Dallas. They gave Dallas 84. They kept 70. So they'll have tonight 37 and 70 in the draft. So that was another underrated part of, hey, you gave up a third round pick. Well, we had 2 third round picks, but you gave up the second of the 2. That was another solid move.
You know what, Mike? It makes my night easier because after 70, I'm pretty much good to go the rest of the night.
You never know. They got all those they got 11 picks, so they got 10.
They're going to trade. I think they get another third round pick tonight. I really do. I think they're going to find a way to do that.
Well, they have the 3 6. They have the 3 6s. A 4 or 5, 3 6s, and then multiple 7s. So I don't know. Do they give up something in next year's draft plus a 6 or something this year to move up a couple spots in the third? I wouldn't be surprised if they found another, a way to move up to target a guy that they really want tonight. You got the second and the third round. There's a guy they really like in between 37 and 70 that they find a way to get themselves between 70 and 37 to get another player in there.
Yeah, this was the big thing when they made the trade. And I pointed this out. Everybody was talking about from 6 to 12. I'm like, what about 84 to what was it, 150 between picks? And they ended up getting, I forget the actual number of the fourth round pick, but it's like 123. I think that's what it is. That's a big, big difference. You're basically going, instead of 70 picks now you balance it out in the 30s there, and now you got that fourth round pick as collateral.
All right, there we go. Just a look at tonight. Went fast. Coming up, the NFL Draft round 2 and 3 tonight. Coverage starts at 6 on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff Kerr, follow him at Jeff Kerr for more NFL and draft coverage and all off season long at Jeff Kerr CBS on Twitter. All right, Jeff, he'll be back on Monday to recap the whole shebang here on the Sports Bash. I'll talk to you then, man.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Jeff Kerr, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. The Sports Bash is brought to you by your Delaware Valley Acura dealers. For great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup, shop online at DelValAcuraDealers.com. When we come back, it's a Sal Pal Friday. ESPN's Sal Pal Antonio. Does he like the move? You might be surprised. Stick around. Hour 2 Sports Bash starts now on a happy hour Friday. I'm Mike Gill, Sal Paolantonio. It's a Sal Pal Friday, the NFL Draft Night 1 in the books. Taking a look back at what happened, how it happened, why it happened, and reaction as ESPN's senior national correspondent, Sal Paolantonio, joins me now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. The Eagles go from 6 to 12 to 10. They end up with the Heisman Trophy winner, Devonta Smith, Sal. So, a lot of mixed reaction going on here. A lot of people wanted him to stay at 6. I think you were in that camp. Then they were at 12. Then they moved to 10. They took Smith here. So, how do we help us react to how we should feel about what this team did over the last couple of hours?
Well, Michael, as you very well know, I predicted that they would take Devonta Smith on your show. I think it was right after I did it on the mock draft on KJZ, the national radio show on ESPN. And you and I talked about it. I knew they were focused on Devonta Smith. I wasn't. That's not my opinion. That was my reporting. I thought they should have taken a corner. But once those two corners were off the board, J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain, both the Cowboys and the Eagles then were out of luck because I think they were both targeting cornerback at the 10th and the 12th picks. And once that happened, it was pretty clear then that the Eagles had to get up the top to the 10th spot in order to take Smith because the Giants were going to take him at 11. So as it transpires, and I was reporting this yesterday on SportsCenter, Howie Roseman was having exploratory conversations, multiple, with different teams on how to jump into the top 10 if this scenario played out. And it did. It did basically because no one really expected the Broncos to take a corner, but they did. And J.C. Horn went a lot earlier than people anticipated. So they had to give up a third-round pick in order to get to the 10th spot because the Cowboys do not need a wide receiver. And I, for one, am against trading with the Cowboys. I don't like the idea of giving the Cowboys a third-round pick, especially for what I view as a luxury item. Devonta Smith is sort of like Jalen Reagor. Obviously, Reagor did not win the Heisman Trophy. Smith was a lot more productive in the college game, but they are basically the same player. They get their separation on the stem of the route. You have to scheme and find ways to find mismatches and get them off the line of scrimmage. I know Nick Sirianni talked yesterday at length about the fact that Smith wins a lot of one-on-ones, but, that's SEC, and I am concerned about his ability to win press man coverage. Be that as it may.
Yeah.
Michael, I just don't like giving a third-round pick to the Cowboys. I just don't. I don't like helping the Cowboys in any way, shape, or form. The Cowboys are going to be the team that everybody predicts wins the division this year. So why are you helping them? I just don't get it.
Yeah, that's where I'm torn. I like Smith. But I said all week here, Sal, that if I'm Howie Roseman, I am calling Chicago. And I am saying, I'll take a first-round pick and I'll go to 20. Give me a first-round pick next year and I'll move to 20. That was the move for me. So I was intrigued by what the Giants did, but I wonder if Philly could have done the same thing.
Well, and here's the thing. Okay, so if the Eagles don't move up, then the Cowboys at 10 probably take Parsons right then and there, right?
Yep.
Okay, we agree on that. Then the Giants at 11
take Smith.
And now the Eagles get a call from Chicago because they think that the Patriots will be in the market for Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And they say, well, we want to get Justin Fields before Bill Belichick gets him. So then the Eagles are on the phone with Chicago at 12. And Chicago and the Eagles flip. And the Eagles, they might get a first-round pick out of Chicago for the deal. And now they move down to 20. And at 20, they can pick a lot of different players, but I think the player to take at 20 would be the one that the Colts took in Kwity Paye. I think Kwity Paye is the next Brandon Graham, and maybe even better, he's bigger than Graham. He's taller than Graham. He's got longer arms than Graham. Graham obviously was a great pick, maybe the best play in Super Bowl history for the Eagles. Besides Philly special, of course.
I think there was a book written about that.
I think so. Somebody wrote it. But Kwity Paye would have been great at 20, and you would have got a pass rusher, and you would have got a lot of extra picks.
Yeah, that's you and I are in the same boat there. The going back to 20, and the same guy. I said you get 20, you stick to your roots. You said it last week on the show. They don't want to take shortcuts because they think they can compete. You move back to 20 and you stick to your roots and take Kwity Paye. That almost was the blueprint that we mapped out last Friday. I guess they had Smith, and I guess maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, is they must have had Smith ranked considerably higher than almost anybody else in that spot.
I don't know if they did or not. It's tough. They say they did, but I'm not privy to the draft board. I don't know any reporter that didn't. Let's explore why Devonta Smith. I think once he moved to 12, he had FOMO, fear of missing out. And, that he would have been stuck at 12, and then everybody would have said, well, Howie, you went down too far. And you missed out on a top 10 player. And, we got Kwity Paye, and it's the same old Philadelphia Eagles. The other thing, too, it's sort of a do-over pick, right, Mike? Because last year they took Jalen Hurts. That angered Carson Wentz. This year they take a player that played with Jalen Hurts in college, makes him happy. He's reunited with Devonta Smith. It's a do-over pick in that respect. It's also a do-over pick because they missed out on Justin Jefferson last year. We could all agree that Jefferson would have been a better pick than Rager. And so it's a do-over pick to take Smith from a locker room standpoint and from a football standpoint. Would I rather have Smith than Rager? Yes, 100%. Not even close.
Oh,
even though Smith is smaller than Rager.
Yeah.
Smith's a better player.
Yeah.
So
the interesting thing here, I feel, and we might have talked.
Do you buy that it was a do-over pick in the sense of the quarterback situation? I do.
Well, I think this is interesting because there was so much talk, Sal, about they didn't do anything to help Wentz. Now they're almost going out of their way to say, hey, we want to help this kid Hurts. We want you to succeed. Here you go. Here's your friend from college.
Yeah, and guess what? It was, put out there that Jeff Lurie said to the team, we are going to build around Jalen Hurts. That's going to be the theme.
Yep.
That's going to be the goal. That's going to be the purpose for everything that we do in free agency and in the draft. And they went out and they did it. So they're true to what they said they were going to do. And but if you want to walk the cat back or turn the clock back, what they should have done is picked Metcalf, Jefferson, and helped Wentz, and the team wouldn't have imploded, and they wouldn't have went 4-11, and blah, 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 blah.
Right. So there's a lot of hindsight in that one. But here's something interesting. I don't know that we brought this up last week or not, but again, this goes back to, I feel, and see what you think, that the front office feels that the Peterson regime did not do a good job with the talent they were given, specifically the wide receivers that were drafted the last 2 years, and said this regime will get more out of these guys, and we're going to give them a number one weapon.
Okay, sure. I feel that's partially true in the comments that they've made.
Yeah.
But, let's go back. This is such an underreported aspect of what was said. If you go back to the press conference that Howie Roseman had on April 21st, okay? That's just a week
2 Wednesdays
before
ago.
The draft.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Howie Roseman said the following about drafting wide receivers. And you can probably play this cut because it was on Zoom and remind everybody. I'm looking it up, and here's what he said. I'll talk a little bit about wide receivers. This is a direct quote. The wide receiver transition in the National Football League has historically been tough. Over the last couple of years, the hit rates have been a little bit more improved, and that's because when you're talking about the kind of coverages they're facing in college football, it's different than what's going on in the NFL. There may be a matchup in college football where the fourth corner, who is never going to have an opportunity to play in the National Football League, is guarding them in college, because that's the kind of matchup where here the third and fourth corners are really good players. So, and it bears out in the statistics when you look at it. And in the fact that wide receivers have the most difficult transition to the National Football League. It's the lowest rate of any position that is drafted. Only 27% of the wide receivers that are drafted get a second contract from their team. That's the lowest percentage of any position that is drafted in the National Football League. Centers are 100%. Offensive tackles, 60%. Linebackers, 55%. Guards, 46%. And then at the bottom is corner at 35%. Defensive tackle at 35%. Wide receivers, 27%. This was put together by Elias, and it's determined by whether or not the player signed a second contract with his draft team. It's very difficult to hit on a wide receiver. Roseman knew that, said it publicly, and for 2 straight years, they basically have drafted the same kind of wide receiver. I just don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, and well, you could just look to last year where we heard Ruggs, Judy, CeeDee Lamb, all these guys. And really, I mean, Jefferson was the only one of that group that really, I mean, Lamb was having a nice year until Prescott got hurt, but Jefferson was the one. The next best receiver was drafted in the second round. That was T. Higgins. Judy and Ruggs really kind of struggled in their first year. So, yeah, it's hard to get these guys. I thought it was interesting, Sal, the fact that Dallas and Philly, I mean, it was one of the things I said you didn't think was going to, were you surprised that those two teams decided to talk and make a deal?
Well, I think it was born out of desperation. Want to go back to what I said. I think it was born out of desperation. Here you had these 2 corners that were gone. I mean, of all the mock drafts that I saw and that you saw, did either one of us see a mock draft where both of the corners were off the board by the time the Cowboys picked at 10?
Right. No, I did not see that scenario. No, I think most people were shocked when Carolina went 8 and took Patrick Surtain. I think that's when the whole thing got flipped on its head. And then Denver's up and Fields is on the board and Horn went to 8 and Surtain goes 9. That flipped the whole thing on its head.
No, there's no question. And then it was born out of desperation.
When they traded up to 10, Sal, when they traded to 10, what did you think it was for Smith? I said to myself, my God, they're going to take Fields.
Oh, no, I never thought that.
Okay. You thought Smith?
I never thought that.
You thought Smith?
I thought they were focused on Smith from the get-go. If they couldn't get a corner. And even if they could, I think they were focused on Smith to try to make Jalen Hurts happy in a way that is completely opposite to what they did to Carson Wentz last year.
Yeah.
I think they have come to the conclusion that the drafting of Jalen Hurts did more to undermine the team, cause a team implosion, than anything that they did in the last 2 years.
Well, if there's one positive to take from this, Sal, and it's a Sal Pal Friday here on the Sports Bash with ESPN senior national correspondent Sal Palantonio. The last time Roseman got thrown to the broom closet, he came out, as Jason Kelsey said, a better man. He learned from those mistakes. Well, maybe they've learned from the mistakes that they made with Wentz and finally acquiesced to get their new quarterback the weapons they refused to get the previous guy.
You know what bothered me about Kelsey's remarks? Do you know who gets thrown into the broom closet with Howie Roseman? The fans do. When those kinds of mistakes are made institutionally by an organization like a sports team that's a monopoly and is using other people's money to run their business, other people meaning the fans of the team.
Yeah.
The fans are the ones that suffer. The fans they're the ones that are using their hard-earned money, the UPS drivers, the firefighters, the nurses, the teachers, all those people who buy tickets to the games, buy their sons and daughters jerseys, pay for parking, pay astronomical amounts for food at the game, and support the team, win or lose. They're the ones that suffer when these kinds of major mistakes are made over and over and over again by the people in charge.
Well, let's just hope that they finally got one right here, specifically at a position that they've been often so wrong. He is ESPN Sal Paolantonio on a Sal Pal Friday. Thanks to our guys, Johnny G, the Burger Realty team in Ocean City. And now, man, May is here. We got beautiful weather coming up, and the NFL next season is here because the draft finishes, and now the training camps. We're going to be getting kickoff here shortly, Sal.
Oh, man. I want to enjoy the summer first, brother.
All right, man. We'll see you down the shore.
Yes, sir.
All right, Sal Paolantonio, ESPN senior national correspondent here on a Sal Pal Friday. A lot to unpack there, obviously. I don't subscribe to Smith and Rieger being similar in skill set there. I don't know that I agree with that. I think they complement each other pretty well, to be honest with you. Look, people forget Smith is 6'1". It's pretty big for a wide receiver, 6'1". In a world where guys are 5'10" and dominating, 6'1" wide receiver. Now, the problem is the weight. He's a small guy weight-wise, 166. Can he stay on the field? I think that's the biggest question mark. Can Devonta Smith stay on the field? All right, inside the Sixers when we come back, they got an interesting weekend ahead. Paul Hudrick's going to jump on board. So we'll get off of the draft for just a small bit here. And then we'll come back with Adam Kaplan, Jeff Nadeau, Happy Hour Friday, and one of the best in the business when it comes to the draft, Tony Pauline from the Draft Network. He's going to join me coming up at 5:25.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Don't forget, Sixers are back in action tonight. They take on the Atlanta Hawks after kicking the living daylights out of the Hawks on Wednesday night in maybe one of the cleanest beatdowns you'll see. They go right back at it tonight at the center. And Paul Hudrick from 97.3 ESPN.com, at Paul Hudrick on Twitter, has a look at tonight's matchup and really the landscape of what's left for the Sixers. They got the Spurs on Sunday night, so we'll kind of dabble into that one as well. What's going on, Paul?
Not much, Mike. Just ready for this game tonight. I'm sure. Hopefully, we get some players in the line, so it's a little bit more competitive than what we saw the other night.
Yeah, I know. They had a lot of guys out, but the Sixers really seem to be hitting on all cylinders. That was like one of the more, I don't want to say beautiful, but it was one of their better played games. I mean, they just really played a very, we're very much in sync on Wednesday night.
Yeah, what I like, Mike, and yeah, of course, like the Oklahoma City Thunder were shorthanded, the Hawks were shorthanded, but you know what? They did what they were supposed to do. They, as you said, they kicked the ever living crap out of them. That's what you need to do against bad teams when you're a good team. And the Sixers have done that. I've been very encouraged. Listen, two bad teams, but Ben Simmons in both of those games, I thought he's looked excellent early on, playing, outstanding defense, turning the other team over, getting them out on the break. I thought, Seth Curry had 20 points, which is super encouraging. And I think part of that was because Ben was kind of forcing the action. And I think Seth plays better as much as, Seth is a guy that can help Joel Embiid out. I think that Ben Simmons really helps Seth Curry out because of his ability to attract defenders and his ability to, dish and kick a three-point shooters. So I think, the Ben Simmons-Seth Curry combination is as important as any of the Sixers have right now.
Yeah, I like what you said there because I thought, looking through the box score, if you didn't watch the game, there's one big thing in that game that really stood out, and it's the way that Curry shot the ball. And he's been good this year, but to have the night like he had the other night, that's what they need. A 4 for 7, 8 for 12 from the field. I mean, you're not going to get that all the time, but the 4 for 7, that's how this team is going to make a deep playoff run, with him shooting the ball well from beyond the arc. I think that's I don't know. What have you – I don't feel like we don't talk about him all that much, but who is he? What's he supposed to be? And what does he mean to the run that this team can make?
He's pretty darn important. He is a starter. When the starters play, when all the starters play, they tend to win. What I liked, what was most encouraging, and what I think Doc Rivers really just seems to be trying to get out of him is he just needs to be aggressive. He just needs to shoot the basketball. He's a very unselfish player. He wants to play the game the right way. He wants to move the basketball. He understands, hey, I have Joel Embiid, I have Tobias Harris, I have Ben Simmons. I'm not the focal point of this team. I am here to help. So I think because of that, sometimes he passes up shots that he should 100% be taking. I look at a guy like a Furkan Korkmaz and just that confidence that Korkmaz has, he just unloads all the time. If Seth Curry had that kind of confidence, I think the Sixers would be in much better shape. So to me, that's the biggest thing with him. He can do it. We know he can make the shots. He's one of the best three-point shooters in the entire league. Coming into the season, he was the highest active three-point percentage shooter in the entire NBA. So it's there. He can do it. That's what he does. But I just think sometimes he kind of has a tendency to be a little passive. And I get to, he doesn't want to be viewed as a one-dimensional player, just as a shooter. He can put the ball on the floor from time to time. He can run a pick and roll, but that's not what his strength is. And that's not what his team needs. His team needs him firing away from three. So I like the aggressiveness the last game against the Hawks, and I think I want to see more of that when they play some better teams.
Yeah, you mentioned Korkmaz. He was 4 for 6. So you get those two guys going at that regularity, making threes. You're going to be tough to beat. The Curry thing I find is interesting because his brother is what he is, but Curry is not like Jason Giambi and Jared. He is a better version of the lesser brother. Like he is a guy that's pretty good. And I think that he's kind of been overshadowed this year by a lot of other stories, but I find him to be such an important piece come playoff time because he's the one guy. I guess Green has shot the ball so well, but Curry can really win a game for you by shooting the basketball.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a reason why Daryl Morey pulled the trigger on that trade. Josh Richardson is still a pretty good basketball player. And it just wasn't it didn't work here. He just wasn't a great fit here. So, I mean, they had to give something up to get him. And Daryl Morey knew that the importance of him shooting the basketball. And getting back to what I talked about with him and Ben Simmons, I just think that connection, those two help each other out so much offensively. Whether it's the two-man game, whether it is the pick and roll, whatever it is, whether it is Ben Simmons getting out in transition and Seth kind of filling those lanes and getting out to the three-point line and Ben finding them. I think those two guys, I think that's the biggest thing, Mike. I think those two really bring the best out in each other on the offensive end of the floor. And listen, Seth is not a great defender. That's the reality. He's fine. He tries. He gives effort. But I also think that's another thing where him and Ben Simmons kind of lean on each other. Maybe where Ben kind of like where each other lack, they kind of make up for it. So I think that's what's so big and so keep going to the playoffs is to have those two playing together, having that chemistry. Because I think that duo can win a lot of basketball games for them on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, I know the Sixers are going to need some outside. The spacing is the big thing with them, needing the outside shooting, obviously. But the spacing is where the difference with Richardson. There was no spacing with Richardson because nobody respected his shot. It didn't help that you had Al Horford out there at the same time. But Richardson was just not a guy to create space on the floor.
Right. And like I said, I like Josh Richardson. I liked the player when he was in Miami. I thought he would fit here. His shot is really, I mean, I don't know what he's shooting right now with Dallas, but it was not very good the last I checked. I mean, his shot has really kind of left him, which is kind of, it's kind of disappointing. And I think that's the big difference. And and then you couple that with Al Horford on the floor, and it was a mess last year from a spacing standpoint. So, moving on from those guys, getting Seth, getting Danny Green, just from a pure spacing standpoint. And Mike, it's not just, like you said, it's not just the shooting.
We lost Paul there. He kind of froze up on us here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. By the way, the numbers for Josh Richardson on the three-point shot this year, just 32%. Now, that was a big problem for this team, is realistically, they did not have the guy who could knock down that three, and that's what everybody wants to see come playoff time. Is the spacing on the floor going to be enough for them to force defenses not to sag off so much on Ben Simmons? That is the biggest thing between now and kind of the end of this season when they play these last 10 games starting tonight. And then getting that from the regular season, how you defend this team, and translating that into the playoff season. That's what it comes down to. And I wanted to bring up Curry with Paul because obviously he gets to see him a lot more up there in person, what he does for the floor spacing of this team. And he has the ability to allow Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to a larger extent have more room to roam in the paint. And I think those are two of the reasons why Joel Embiid is having a monster MVP-esque season. And I think Ben Simmons, you could almost say, is the most underappreciated player in the entire league right now. From him being out those four games, how bad they were defensively. And then offensively, they have no rhythm offensively when Ben's not out on the floor. We don't hear so many people talking about Ben not scoring as much anymore. Why? Because Joel Embiid scored 35 a night in recent, the last month or so. He's been about 30 points a game. We don't hear, wow, they need Ben. Ben doesn't score. Ben's so inconsistent. Because, he wasn't there, and you saw how bad it looked without him. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. It's the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you are watching the show, you can get into the comments section and leave your comments for the Sports Bash. We're going to get back into the draft, and I have so many thoughts in this draft. I want to kind of go pick by pick and give you my thoughts on it all. But before we do that, I want to tell you about my guys over at Trifecta Therapeutics. Yeah, they're in Glassboro. I've been having this problem with my elbow. I don't know what I did with it. And it was one of those things where I have no idea what I did, how it happened. But this is where Trifecta comes in, because you can get a free discovery session by using the code ESPN Radio at trifectatherapeutics.com or call them today. See, you wake up one morning, you're like, man, my elbow hurts, and I don't even remember what I did. I don't know what I did with it. Well, I can't figure out what I did, but they could do the discovery session and kind of tell you, hey, this is what's wrong. This is how you might have done it. Did you do this? Did you do that? Maybe you did this. Maybe you did that. Because they have the highest trained doctors and the most skilled doctors, all at Trifecta Therapeutics. They're centrally located for anyone in South Jersey, right in Glassboro. And listen, you want the best. If you have to drive an extra 20 minutes, 15, 20, 30 minutes to get the best, wouldn't you do it? Absolutely you would. So why not call my friends at Trifecta Therapeutics and use code ESPN Radio to get a free discovery session? What did you do to your ankle? I don't know. I woke up and it hurt. Doesn't that happen to you guys way too often? It happens to me all the time now. I wake up, I say, my ankle hurts, but I don't know what I did. To get your free discovery session today at Trifecta Therapeutics. All right. We will get back into the draft. I appreciate Paul. Of course, I think we lost connection with him. But he'll be back on Monday. And, of course, the Sixers are back tonight and on Sunday right here on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Coming up at 5 o'clock, it's a happy hour Friday with the PT. We'll get his thoughts on the draft. And then Tony Pauline from the Draft Network at 5:25.
All right, is that a Q2 or Q3 expense?
Dwayne's CPA went MIA.
W9.
To keep his books and his sanity, he needs to find a replacement ASAP.
Hey, Johnny, have you ever heard of a fungible good?
Indeed can help him hire the people he needs.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job, you immediately get your short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job criteria. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you one of the millions of homeowners who haven't refinanced yet? If so, I'm here to tell you it's not too late. Hi, I'm Wesley Hogan with Westland Financial. Although the lowest rates may be in our rearview mirror, as the economy recovers from the biggest economic shock of our lifetime, rates still remain near historic lows. In fact, with the dramatic increase in home values, this may be the perfect time to put that new home equity to work. Take advantage of our cash out refi program and pay off high rate credit cards, car loans, or other high interest rate debt. Or finally make those home improvements you put on hold for so long. Best of all, we can do this with no closing costs. That's right. Whether it's a conventional, FHA, or VA loan, we'll pay for your title, settlement, lender, and recording fees. So call Westland at 888-455-3669. That's 888-455-3669. It's the biggest no-brainer in the history of mankind. 888-455-3669.
Paid for by Westland Financial. NMLS number 3304. Not all loans apply. Equal housing lender.
All right, here we go. Pick 1 through 32. I'll give you instant, quick reaction. Your texts, your tweets, your comments in the video stream. 609-403-0973. Jalen, Mike, I have to give you credit for being right about Howie. I initially didn't like them moving back, but after listening to the show, I figured he had the intel that Chase and Pitts would be gone at 6. That's interesting. As I had a conversation with someone today, I don't like Roseman. I just don't hate him either. That's the difference. I don't like Roseman. I just don't hate the guy. He won the Super Bowl. I'm not a dumb enough person to say I hate the guy who built a Super Bowl roster. I'm willing to give you a chance. That's the problem. That's the difference. People hate the guy. He won the Super Bowl. So, I mean, was I right about him? I mean, I have more information maybe than most people. That helps me formulate my opinion. And I just don't have downright hate for people. My gosh, people just despise the man. He's done a lot of good. He's done a lot of good. I think one of the problems with Roseman is there's a lot of influence in that room. I think the Joe Douglas influence was a bad influence. I don't know that Joe Douglas and Howie Roseman were the best of partners, even though they built a Super Bowl together, because Roseman couldn't get the credit for helping build a Super Bowl champion because Douglas was there, but then Roseman got the blame for the bad picks, but Douglas was there. So I don't know that that was the best scenario for the duo. But you don't have to give me credit for being right about Howie. Just you can give me credit for not being so hateful towards anybody. There are a lot of people out there that just simply don't like me. They don't like my opinion, so they don't like me. I don't understand how, there are people I don't agree with. I don't dislike them. We just don't agree on things. But there are people like, I hate that guy. Why? Because we don't agree that I don't think you should throw a baseball at someone's head when another guy does it to you. I don't need to stoop down to your level. But because they don't agree with me, they just don't like me. Whatever. I have enough confidence that I don't care whether you like me or not. That's how you have to have this job. You're going to say something that other people are not going to like. And I quite frankly don't care if you agree with me or not. That's not why you do it. I know going in you're not going to agree with me, half the people. And the other half probably are going to agree with me. And then there's probably a percentage of people who don't really have their minds made up. And if I can help you go one way or another, so be it. But Roseman, to me, he's just a middle-of-the-road guy. He's really good at making trades. He's really good with the cap. They have failed in the draft. It doesn't mean every pick's a fail. It doesn't mean every trade's a win. Anthony James, I'm still shocked people woke up today with such negativity about what happened. So what? Dallas got a late third from us. We got a 1 next year. Yeah, they gave up a 3 to Dallas. I mean, I know the Eagles haven't done well in the third, but that 3 could be Davion Taylor. It could be, who's the corner from West Virginia? Russell Douglas. I mean, come on. You're after the 3, you're starting to get to a range where who the hell knows? Right? The fact of the matter is this. The Eagles got, of the 3 teams, New York, 4. Washington got the worst player. And this is tonight. This could all change. 2 years from now, we might be saying Washington got the best player. And Philly, he can't stay healthy. Just off last night, total opinion. Philly got the best player. Dallas got the second best player. New York got the third best player, and Washington got the fourth best player. Philly has the first-round pick next year. I love what the Giants did getting that first-round pick. I said I like what the Giants did. Like, this shows I don't care. Like, I'm not a Giants fan. The Giants did a good job. Whether I like them or not, I have to give them their props. They did a good job. I thought Dallas did a good job moving back from where they were at 10 to add the third pick to get the player they would have taken at 10. I'll give them credit for that. I'll give them credit for that, no doubt. Dallas did a good job of the guys they wanted. The two guys they wanted were not there, so they moved back and got the next guy they would have taken at 10 anyway. 609-403-0973. Couple more. A lot coming in on the text board. Let me go over to the text board here. As a Giants fan, I prefer Parsons. I think he's a better player than Giants wide receiver Tony. If I was a Giants fan, I prefer Parsons too. We are on the same page there. But I prefer getting that first-round pick, moving back to 20. I would have done that if the Giants, I'd do that all over. Mike, if they want to give Hurts a year to prove themselves, yep, they need a corner, but with the two top corner gone, this was the move. I agree. You don't hear me fighting that. What time was that text sent? What did I say? 2:15 in the show. Well, I was on board with it, so I guess you're not disagreeing with me. Eventually, you got to get talent. It's not all about accumulating for next year. Take Asante Samuel Jr., JOK tonight and sweep 2022 draft with our 2 first rounds and 2 seconds. Well, I agree. It's about us getting talent, but one player is not changing the fortunes of your franchise unless he's some quarterback that, and not even that. I mean, look, there's a guy that keeps texting in about Cincinnati. Why are you banging on Cincinnati? They can get an offensive lineman. Yeah, they can get an offensive lineman. But you know the difference between Jack Driscoll? You know, that's a nice offensive lineman in the 5th. You could have had the best offensive lineman at 5 at the most important position. You had the number 1 pick last year. You got him killed. He tore his ACL because you couldn't block. So you went out and got Chase. Yeah, smart. That's why you're a Bengals fan. You don't have any brains. And that's why they're perpetually drafted in that spot. They like to have all the fun toys and gadgets. But what did we say the other day? Eventually, the video game you get bored of, but you're always going to shoot hoops in the driveway. You always go back to Old Faithful. The video game, you'll find a new one. That's getting a receiver over a lineman. The lineman's the basketball. You're always going to shoot hoops in the driveway. The receiver's the fun video game that you'll play until you get bored of it.
Mike, they brought up on NFL Network. I wanted to ask you about this, about the fact that a lot of teams reunited quarterbacks with the players they played with in college. We saw Trevor Lawrence with Travis Etienne. Obviously, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle and Tua. You had Burrows and Chase. How do you feel about that?
I think it's pure coincidental. Obviously, I say coincidental. The quarterback and the receiver relationship helps. I think Burrow knowing Chase helps say, look, there's 3 guys. We all like him a lot. I know this guy. That breaks the tie, I would think. If you have 2 guys rated the same, your quarterback's going to come in the room and voice his opinion, right? So I think that's pretty much the tiebreaker. I don't think Burrow's going to go in and say, hey, there's 3 guys here. I really think Waddle's better than Chase, right?
No, but what I mean is that it seems a little convenient that multiple teams did this in the draft this year. It seems a little too convenient.
Well, I think because there's so many of wide receivers, the wide receiver talent is, and those quarterbacks, I would contend, like Joe Burrow came out of nowhere, right? Came out of nowhere. Why? Well, he had Chase and Jefferson. Not that he's not a good player, but did those 2 players put him on the map? Hurts is interesting because wasn't known in college as this, prolific passer.
He became one at Oklahoma, but he wasn't at Alabama.
Right. He never had the talent that those other guys had.
Now also we should remember that Jalen Hurts was part of the group of people who helped recruit Devonta Smith to Alabama. So
yeah, Smith said that last night.
There is that deeper connection there as well.
And Etienne, I thought, by the way, that was one of the worst picks of the night. I thought
I hated that pick.
They had a running back last year who, you paid no money to. It was an undrafted rookie free agent, Robinson, and he was, top 5 Russian in the league.
And you signed Carlos Hyde.
Not to mention, they have the kid from Millville on their roster who missed the whole year because of COVID. So you had Robinson, who had what was Robinson, the 5th leading rusher in football last year?
He was like 5th or 6th.
By the way, he was the guy that Checo loved last year in the draft.
That's true.
Remember that? Yeah, why you took a running back in the first round? That made no sense.
I'm on the stream last night. I kept screaming, I don't understand why nobody is drafting Tevin Jenkins, the offensive lineman. You had multiple teams like the Jags who could have used an offensive lineman like Tevin Jenkins, and every team just kept passing on him for these, what you would call a luxury pick.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't understand it.
Let me run through these real fast. All right. So Lawrence, obvious. Zach Wilson, don't love it. I understand what they're doing. I mean, they need a quarterback. I don't agree with the quarterback they took. I think Wilson's going to get hurt.
I agree.
And that's a shame. He's just so small. He's just a small guy. Lance, I probably would have gone with Fields. I wouldn't have made the trade they made to get there. So I hated the pick because I wouldn't have traded what they traded to get to the 3rd pick. But they took Lance. Good luck with that.
Lance makes sense because he played in a pro-style offense at college, which replicates Kyle Shanahan's offense.
Threw 300 career college passes.
It's the Patrick Mahomes plan. Let him sit for a year, then he'll play him later.
If they do that, then that's fine. Let him sit, fine.
That's the plan.
But that's not the way of the NFL a lot these days.
Well, Jimmy G's under contract still.
Love Pitts. Don't love him in Atlanta. This is Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Pitts, and you still can't block.
Right.
So you can make the same argument that I made for Cincinnati. The difference is Cincinnati has the number 1 overall pick at quarterback, and Atlanta's quarterback's 35 years old. So that's why I think Cincinnati bungled it more than Atlanta did. But Atlanta, great. Now you have another toy on offense that you can't block for, and your defense sucks.
Remember, Terry Fontenot does come from New Orleans, where they tried to build around Drew Brees at the end of his career. So
yeah, Chase, love the player, hate the pick.
Right.
Pick should have been Sewell. Bengals will be right back in this spot next year. There's a handshake. Thanks for coming. Top 5 draft, Cincinnati. I think Miami has got to be pissed off. They make all these trades, traded all over the place to get to 6, and I can't imagine they traded to 6 to get Waddle. Right?
I mean, it depends on how I don't know what Miami's board is. So I'm assuming if they picked Waddle, he must have at least been high on their board at least.
Yeah, no, well, of course. I mean, they're in, but I think to move from where they did to where they went to back to 6, about all this around, and probably a player they could have got a little further back. That's all.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
Sewell, I love the pick for Detroit. They finally put their big boy pants on and said, enough with the wideouts and the gadgets and this. Let's get our hands dirty.
They want to bite knees, man.
They followed the coach's personality. Love Horn. Don't mind him here. Was a little surprised.
Surprised, but I understand that Matt Rule likes to run a certain kind of defense. So
Surtain, I mean, I thought Denver was taking Fields for sure. That was a big surprise.
I actually thought Denver was going to take Rashawn Slater there. I was surprised by Surtain.
The trade, I love what Philly does. They jump over. They get to pick Devonta Smith. Love the player. But I probably am more inclined to say I would have stayed at 12 and made the trade the Giants did. But that being said, I like this. I like the situation, what happened equally as much.
I applaud the Eagles. That's my position.
Fields, more on that. No, you're off tonight and tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you'll be able to recap it on Monday.
That's right.
The draft starts at 6 tonight. That's why Josh is off today. And tomorrow the draft's at noon. That's why there's no Sports Bash Saturday. Fields, I applaud Chicago for taking this shot. I don't have a problem with what they did. I said it would take a first-round pick to move. I was right. I wish the Eagles were in that spot, but I'm equally as happy.
Good deal for both teams.
Yeah. Parsons, love the pick for Dallas. I
Smart
think
pick.
They did a good job.
That's a smart pick right there.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't panic when their 2 guys went. They traded in the division. They could have been stubborn and said no. And they got a player at 12 that they were going to probably pick at 10 had the Eagles and them not agreed to flip-flop.
Mm-hmm.
Slater, perfect spot right there. Chargers, can't ask for anything more. Elijah Vera Tucker, They made the trade. I said it on the stream last night. They got to take Vera Tucker. Smart move by the Jets.
Definitely a smart move by the Jets.
Perfect. They get the quarterback at 2, and they get the lineman to protect them. Bengals, take notes. Mac Jones. I mean, the Patriots step right in it.
I mean, that's predictable,
right? I think he can't play, though. Not a fan.
I'm curious. I'm
curious, too. I mean, here's this Alabama guy who had 4 first-round wide receivers, and he lands to the spot where they have no wide receivers.
And a first-round running back, too.
Yeah. Zaven Collins, a little surprise on the stream last night. I thought they'd go Farley. Or I said Collins. I got a half a point for that.
Yeah, you got half a point.
But I would have gone Farley probably there. Or Newsom. Leatherwood, I was shocked. I mean, I thought there were better linemen still available.
That's Mike Mayock for you.
Yep. Phillips, a lot of injury problems.
Miami connection, though.
Davis, I thought, was a stretch at Washington. I did not like that pick at all.
Huge reach. Didn't
need defense. I like Tony. I don't know if I love him at 20, but after I make the trade and got a first-round pick next year, I'm doing cartwheels anyway.
Like
and they wanted Smith.
Like you don't love it, yeah.
They wanted Smith anyway, so they got a Smith type of player. Not as good.
Right.
But I'll take what the Giants did. Quiddy Pay at 21. I would have got Wentz a weapon.
Makes a lot of sense, though. They didn't have a great pass rush last year.
Farley at 22. It's another thing. That's a defensive that's a team that likes to run the ball. They don't have a lot of weapons. Their defense wasn't as good last year as like you think of them as a defensive team, but their defense wasn't as good last year. So Farley helps them out. Darrisaw, great pick. Minnesota needed a lineman in the worst way.
Interesting to see how they handle the character questions about him, though.
Yeah, they needed a lineman in the worst way, though, so they had to go with a lineman here. Harris, running back. I mean, they lost Connor.
And Casey Jordan brought up the fact that the Steelers want to get back to what they used to do, which is focus on the running game to take pressure off.
He catches the ball out of the backfield, though, too.
He does. And Casey Jordan was saying it was stupid last year they had Ben throw the ball so much.
Etienne, hated that pick. Waste of a first-rounder. Thanks for playing Jacksonville. That's why you picked number 1.
Should have gone offensive lineman.
No doubt. You got the number 1 pick in the draft.
Protect
them. You gave him a running back. You had a running back who was a top 5 rusher, and you don't pay that guy anything. He was an undrafted rookie free agent. Newsom, love the pick for Cleveland. Good job out of them.
Hard-hitting cornerback.
Tackles.
Hits. Hard.
Bateman, love it in Baltimore.
He's going to be their number 1 receiver.
Turner, I thought was, what? To the Saints?
That was one of those, the Saints being too cute.
Stokes, I like the Campbell better.
I like Campbell better, too.
And Rousseau worked the reach for for Buffalo.
Definitely a good pick for Buffalo.
Owe, love that for Baltimore.
I like that one better than
I
the
probably
Buffalo
would have
pick.
taken Elijah Moore, though, and just said, hey, we got the 2 best receivers still on the board. And Tryon from Washington. What the hell?
That was the stupidest pick of the first round.
There you go. A look at the first round. When we come back, Adam Kaplan has insight on how the trade happened next.
home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
He is hit. He stumbles. He's down.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. 97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Kaplan.
I have real confidence that our football operations can once again create a dominant football team.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which was excellent all week long. They gave you great insight on the draft and to get you ready for the draft last night and plenty more reaction. You can check out their YouTube channel. And, of course, the Inside the Birds podcast drops on Monday morning at 6. I'm sure more reaction to rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the third man of the NWO, he is Adam Kaplan, and he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right. Happy Friday there, Adam. How are you?
Good to talk to you, Mike. Yeah, we're going to drop what we're doing is, so for the listeners, so they know this, we're dropping a ton of extra content. So what we did last night, Mosher and I, we had last night, we dropped a review of round 1 and all the intel of what we were told. We're going to talk about some of it today, but we talked about what we were hearing about trading up, trading down, and so forth. And then we're going to do the same thing tonight. We're going to review rounds 2 and 3 right after it's over. So it's the third round won't be over till around midnight, I believe. So it's going to be a little bit late, and we'll put that up on all our platforms, YouTube, Apple and Android. And then we'll do the same thing after rounds 4 through 7. Then our Monday morning show will break down 1 through 7. We're going to review their draft. We give you the intel on where we think these guys are going to fit in. So yeah, you're right. We got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, and by the way, I think people will stay up to watch. So there's a lot of starting about what they did last night. On Thursday night, Devonta Smith goes number 10. Give us a little background on how this went down, because one thing that I was sure, Adam, was that Philly and Dallas would likely not play nice in the sandbox. There was one thing I was incorrect on.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't see that coming. Mosher and I did separate reporting on this. The Eagles were, though we had similar information. So I reported that the Panthers and Eagles were in pretty heavy talks earlier this week. The Eagles felt that the word that was given to me is the Eagles felt that the trade up was too big to go to 8. And what we were hearing, Jeff and I were hearing, was going to be for a receiver. Now, whether it's Waddle or Smith, I don't know. But at this point, it probably would be Smith. They were definitely going to trade up to 8 if they could, or 9. As Jeff reported, they talked to Denver. Now, here's what I don't know. We knew, Jeff and I know, it was either Surtain or Smith at 9. I don't know one way or the other whether if there's a separation of who they were going to get, who they wanted. But I just find it hard to believe that they would not trade up for a cornerback because it was their biggest need. Receiver obviously was a need. And we'll get to Smith and what he brings in a second. But I had reported before the show started, we did a pre-draft show. So Jeff, I heard from an NFL general manager who told me he's pretty certain both corners are going to go in the top 10. But what I didn't know is, and I said this to Jeff, maybe with the Lions taking with 7, because we reported they were looking to trade down. Now they went with Sewell, who most people thought would not go to 7. They thought he'd go at 5 or 6. So this first round, Mike, was not about trades. There were only 3 of them. It was about players dropping and players going ahead earlier than we expected. The Raiders baffled me once again, taking Alex Leatherwood way earlier than we expected. But getting back to the Eagles, when you look at Devonta Smith, as you said, now the Eagles believed, talking to an Eagle source, that they thought the Giants were going to take him. They were right in that. Now I got to give Howie Roseman credit in his front office. They knew they were going to take a receiver. The best receiver on the board at 10 was Devonta Smith. Jalen Waddle, depending on which team you talk to, was probably the higher graded player. Well, he went off at 6. There was no question about that. They weren't getting him. But they traded up for Smith because he was the highest graded player on their board. He was one of the top 12 players on their board, by the way. They had the 12th pick overall. So they gave up the extra third. And Jeff and I had said there was 0 chance they would have 12 picks by the end of this draft. My number was 9. I don't think they'll have fewer than 9. They'll probably have 9 or 10 by the end of it. They're now 1 down. I wouldn't. Now, I know people. I have a Twitch channel, which I announced this week. I did Twitch today and yesterday. If someone asked me, and it's a great question, Mosher and I know for a fact that they consider trading down. That player trading down, the player that they would have targeted would be Kwity Paye. As I told you on your show last Friday, they would not take him at 12. That was not a consideration. It was never a consideration. 12 is a consideration, as I understand it, trading down. And Jeff and I had heard separately, together, that was a player they would have traded down for. What I find interesting about Kwity Paye, Mike, is that he dropped to 21. And how I was very surprised that he went that far down. I thought the Raiders would take him to 17. But once again, the Raiders baffled America and took a player that was had a lower grade.
All right, Adam, that's interesting because all week I said if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm calling the Bears and I am demanding a first-round pick, and I would have moved to 20 and taken. In this case, you would have got Kwity Paye and a first-round pick next year. That's the deal that I wanted them to make. The giant deal was the deal that I wanted Roseman to make.
Well, I know. Here's what I could tell you. I know that they spoke. Okay. I don't know yet exactly what went on. I might suspect that what you said was discussed, but I just know that the Bears called. I spoke to 3 teams, and they all said that Ryan Pace is fiercely trying to trade up. Now, they knew it was a quarterback. They didn't know which one. The word I got was either going to be Mac Jones or Justin Fields. It was Fields.
They got the better one.
Right. Now, here's a question, Mike. Let me throw this back to you being an Eagle guy, right? Okay, so let's say that scenario. Let's say hypothetically the Eagles and Bears talked about it, because I know they talked. The question is, let's say they were offered the same offer, right? Let's say hypothetically they went at the same offer. Yes, potentially they could have 4 first-round picks next year if the Wentz pick converts to a first. But here's the problem. Kadarius Toney is a much lower graded player than Devonta Smith. It's not close. Now, they could have had Kwity Paye. Okay, that was their trade down possibility as we outlined. Okay, nice player, good player. They need a younger DN. It's a by draft grades. He had a much lower grade than Smith. So your question is, okay, do I take the extra first round pick and all that comes with it, or do I take Kadarius Toney, Kwity Paye? I don't know what I want. You know what? If first round pick is nice, yes, this is a semi rebuild, but you're taking far less players. That's the debate I'm sure the teams would have.
Yeah, I mean, Bateman could have been in play there too at 20. I mean,
he's okay. He's okay.
I know, but like obviously, if they liked Paye enough that they felt comfortable trading back for. That's like if you had a player graded high enough that, hey, I would feel great at 20. That's their board. Might not be our board, but
right.
If they said in my mind, hey, we have Smith here and we have Kwity Paye as maybe our 15th guy, and you got him at 20 and a first round pick next year. That's where I thought the Giants, maybe they took the player they took was too high, but I like that deal if it was proposed to Philadelphia. Now, in the end,
we're probably gonna have something on this. We do our show tonight. We'll nail it down.
Okay,
we'll have an update, but
that's good.
It was interesting. I got to tell you, the Eagles talked to Carolina, as I mentioned. They went up talking to Denver. They tried. Denver didn't take the quarterback Fields, which I put him in my mock draft. They took Surtain. Now, I did mention on our pre-draft show that
turned the whole draft upside down.
Well, here's what happened. I said to Jeff, and then Greg Cosell was with us. I said, don't discount Denver for a corner. I didn't know it would be Horner or Surtain, but I said, here's why. And I went over the contracts. It's really important when you do mock drafts, you know about contract structure. 2 of their top 3 corners, their contracts expire after the season. I said, don't, because there's no defensive end or a pass rusher to take there. Don't count them out for a corner. And I did report this, that there was probably going to be 2 corners going in the top 10. That's exactly what happened. And now the Eagles, they got a problem now at cornerback for taking a receiver there. And I don't blame him. He's a great player.
Yeah.
But cornerback is still an issue.
Yeah, no doubt. And Roseman indicated last night that if a corner is not the highest guy on the board, they're not going to go off the board.
Well, and you know what? And it's funny. I don't know if you watched our pre-draft show. I said, I know people are going to laugh at this and they're going to make fun of me, but I think it's worth pointing out because people keep asking me this question. As much as I was insulted by it, I said, you know what? I'm going to deal with it. So a couple of people asked me on our Inside the Birds board, well, like, Howie Roseman trying to draft better because of how Bailey did, or is he going to react to the fans? Like, obviously, that's kind of a juvenile question, but I get it. Fans are sick and tired of Roseman drafting poorly. Okay. Did you notice in Roseman's talk that, we don't usually do this stuff, but I find it fascinating. Last week, you and I talked about it. He didn't even deny that the Athletic article about them going off the board, okay, by not going by the board. I had heard through my sourcing, Mike, that Roseman was super dialed in. He seemed to ask more questions. He had been more conversational. Now, you could read into it what you want, but maybe not that he thinks he's under pressure, but he knows they have to do better. Mike, that's the point here.
No doubt.
And so far, so good. But I'm so glad you brought that up because let me tell you something. I've talked to a lot of teams. There are plenty of slot corners. There are low-end number 2 corners in the second round. There are no number 1 corners. To me, they should not be taking Asante Samuel here. He's a slot corner. Now, one point. He's a more twitchy, more athletic, a little bit longer than Avonte Maddox. He would be an upgrade over him, but he's not an outside corner. That is the problem. I know they like him. I don't know if they'll take him, but I'm just telling you that's a debate around the league.
All right, day 2, 3 possibilities coming up. So stick around. I want to get your take on Devonta Smith, how the Eagles plan on using him, what it means for the other guys, Rieger, Fulgham, even J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, because we heard Sirianni say 2 weeks ago, what is an X receiver? They come in all shapes and sizes.
He's right.
A number 1 X receiver.
Right. All right, so let me explain this. I'm so glad Sirianni was fantastic these last 2 weeks. I know he's a little bit too talkative. I know it annoys people. Okay, if that's the worst thing you can say about the guy, that's fine.
I love him so far.
I think he's great. I think now we folks take these comments in increments. Okay, you should like the guy so far. He got over his stage fright at his first interview with the media, which was a difficult time because he had to deal with the Wentz stuff. But moving this forward, if you look at kind of the wide receiver positions, I was talking to a veteran receivers coach this week. I had a real education. I talked to this guy for 45 minutes. He said, you need to stop focusing on X and Z. He goes, just call them outside receivers. He said, they're somewhat interchangeable depending on your scheme. He said, look, he asked me what kind of scheme the Eagles going to run. I said, I'm told West Coast. He goes, oh. He goes, look, if it's a true old school West Coast like Mike Shanahan's, I said it is. It's different from Doug Peterson's. It's more timing. He goes, look, it's shallow crosses. And by the way, this is what Sirianni talked about. It's crossing routes. It's run after the catch. You could do that on either side, X and Z, if you want to call them that, or just the 2 outside receiver spots and the slot position. So the key here is, and Greg Cosell talked about this in our show last night, it's not about X and Z. It's about your ability to free the guy off the ball. It's about your releases. That's it. I think what I've learned this week, and all I do is talk to coaches, man. I talk to coaches all the time. It's about being educated and being an analyst and reporter and a fan of the game. And what I've learned is you got to stop being so stringent on X and Z. So I probably started this talk last spring, and I think a lot of people picked up on it. I'm probably going to back off of it. It's just about drafting a great player, Mike, and lining them up and freeing them up and coaching them. Now it's up to Aaron Moorhead, who's a receivers coach, and Nick Sirianni, the head coach, is the play caller, to free this guy up.
Yeah, and when I look at Smith, and I say this, like people have said a little bit of Marvin Harrison in him, but
that's what Jeff said. Yeah, he had Moshe heard from a team. I won't disclose it because Jeff won't let me. But although I don't know if he told me, he said something which indicated it was an AFC team. But anyway, he did say, like, they mentioned Marvin Harrison, and I know the kid Smith was a Heisman Trophy winner, but I was blown away by that, and I was like, man, well, that guy's a Hall of Famer, Marvin Harrison. So, you know what? One personnel director who Jeff and I met at the Combine in 2020 texted me. He said, "Oh my God, what a great pick!" Because this guy made fun of Howie with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He goes, "This is a great pick. Don't worry about him. He's tough as nails, this kid, Smith." I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because he's thin, but he goes, he's tough. I'm like, all right, I'll mention it.
Say, Deshaun Jackson's 5'10", 175 pounds.
Well, actually, Mike, it's funny. He was between 166, I'm told, and 168 as a rookie at 5'10". This kid's 6 feet.
Yeah.
But he's also but he's put together more. He's stronger physically, I was told.
Yeah, his top hit. If you watch him, gets the hands of the D-backs off him. Very good at getting
which is important, right?
You talk about 6'1". I feel like Deshaun Jackson was an explosive player, but not the polished wide receiver, route runner, hands, taller version, better version, more polished version of what D-Jack brought you. And you saw when Jackson was at the height, he was the best deep threat in the game. But this guy,
one of the best, by the way, in NFL history. This kid is a bit longer. And I don't want to knock Deshaun, but let's tell the truth. Deshaun was extremely immature when he was drafted. And I'm being kind.
Sloppy route runner.
Well, no, but I'm saying off the field, Deshaun needed to grow up.
Yeah.
This kid is serious. He's all ball. We're going to have a note that we got from Eagle Source tonight on our show about this kid and what he brings to the team. But I could tell you, now they've got elite team speed. They've got elite playmaker. And make Dallas Goedert better. It's going to make Jalen Hurts better. Travis Fulgham better. This is going to be a more competitive room. This is a great pick for them. Jeff and I said it's one of 4 players they would target at 12. Well, they went up and they got the guy. So they got who we thought they would get, to be honest with you.
Yeah. What other positions were considered if they stayed at 12? My question was, too, if Fields was there, I guess that's off the board. Because when they traded to 10, I said, oh, my God, they're going to take Fields.
Well, it's funny. I put a note out on WIP yesterday. I said, don't discount quarterback, and the guy would be Fields. Yes, I know. Again, I don't want people to confuse. I'm not reporting that they would have taken Fields, but I just know they liked him very much. Just to sum it up, look, the other positions were corner. They were pretty much split on Horner and Surtain. They would have taken either one. I told people there was better chance that I'd be mayor than there one would be there, or excuse me, 2 would be there at 12. And they both went by 9. So it would have been, let's just say, to move this forward here, let's say all were gone, they would have traded out. Jeff and I have similar information. They would have traded out from 12. If everyone was gone, they couldn't get Smith, they would have traded out.
And they would have got that Bears deal. They would have got that Bears deal. Man, that would have made me happy. Although I do like this pick. And keep in mind, too, he led the nation in screen yards as well. So there's another way that you
can do everything. Smith is his absolute stud. This is a great pick.
Adam Kaplan, Inside the Birds podcast. All right, before we let you roll, 2 and 3 tonight, give me a couple names fans, listeners should be targeting.
All right. I don't think he's going to make the 37. My guess is Morig, the safety from TCU, will go at 33. But if he doesn't, keep an eye on him. Eagles will grab him faster than I could say yes. Elijah Moore from Mississippi. I know it's odd for them to consider taking 2 receivers in the first 2 rounds. He's just a terrific football player. Who's a slot first and outside guy second. Richie Grant, a very good safety. Landon Dickerson, who's an outstanding center. He's coming back from a bad knee injury. He wouldn't start anyway this year because it's Kelsey. This would be a pick for the future. I'm trying to figure out and trying to find out by our post show. Well, we'll find out one way or the other where they are medically with him. He is a terrific football player. He'd be a great pick. Javonte Williams will be in play at 37. He's the best running back on the board by far. It'd be a great pick. The Eagles would like to have a 2-man backfield if they could. Asante Samuel Jr., I talked about earlier. Owusu Koromoa would be a great pick. Keep an eye on him. The Eagles will take a linebacker, I think. More of a guess, but I just know they're more involved in linebacker this year than last year. In rounds 2 or 3. It would be a major upset, Mike, if they don't have a linebacker through round 3.
All right. By the way, I want to throw this out on Smith. In the biggest game of the year with Ruggs and Judy, the biggest play of the year went to who? Devonta Smith.
Devonta Smith. Yeah, and it's funny. One more thing. Last year, the talk was that the 2 kids who are coming out this year would be better than Ruggs and Judy. How about that?
Yep. And
pretty interesting.
Very big. All right, there you go. The pick is Devonta Smith. More on it, Inside the Birds. Check out all their platforms. The Inside the Birds podcast drops on Monday morning. They'll have everything on all 7 rounds. Jeff Mosher will be back on Monday to recap here. And Adam's back on Thursday next week for the rest of 2021. He's a Thursday contributor.
You got it. See you then. See you.
There you go. Adam Kaplan back with more Sports Bash coming up here on this Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday. Yes, we've reached Happy Hour Friday. What's everybody having this weekend? Draft party Saturday, Kentucky Derby party. What are you doing this weekend? How about going to the Flyers game? tomorrow, 609 403 0973. 609 403 0973. Flyers tomorrow. I got a 4-pack of tickets against the Devils. Send me a text, 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. I got a 4-pack this hour and next hour. First person with the text gets in. You get the 4-pack. You're going tomorrow. Flyers, Devils. 609-403-0973. Tomorrow's game, 4-pack, Flyers, Devils. Send me the text with the word Flyers so we can comb through our text messages and do a search for Flyers. First one we get, you'll get it. Don't worry. We'll hook you up. And I got another pair next hour. Woo! All right. Busy show. Happy Hour Friday. Pete Thompson tonight. And Tony Pauline, one of the best draft guys out there. 525. Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Jeff Bone and Pookie is watching. Says, I love happy hours. I do too. I feel that tonight will be very fun. I love the draft. It's one of those things like the NCAA tournament, though. It gets here, and then it happens, and then it's done, and you're like, oh, my gosh, that was quick. All right, Sports Bash. Yeah, Kaplan, fantastic. I thought so, too. He's always great. I mean, they have one of the top insiders locally and nationally on every week for you guys. That's awesome. It's amazing to be able to bring you that every week here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. And if you can watch the show, you get to see Adam live on the video. Uzi Wolf says, I was nervous about getting a quarterback, although I wouldn't have been angry, but figured Smith was a lock after we traded. Yeah, see, I had this fear that they were going to take Fields when they traded. I was like, this is the moment where people say Howie wants to be the smartest guy in the room, and that they had Fields so high on their draft board that they just couldn't allow it. You know, they were going to trade up. I don't know why they would trade up, though, because I don't think Dallas or New York would have taken them, but it just was like, oh, my God, they're going to do this. They are going, because they didn't want maybe somebody to jump ahead of them. All right. Let's see. Let me go over the text board here. A lot of texts coming in that I'm sorry that it's a lot. Sometimes the video screen is up in front of us, so I happen to see them a lot more. But I will go to the text board and check this out. All right, NFC East draft grades. Dallas A, they got a great player in draft capital. Giants B+, they got a haul for trading back, but they reached on the receiver. Washington football team B-. Eagles B-. Don't like moving up for a wide receiver when I thought defense was needed desperately, but they got the Heisman winner. Dallas, I mean, I said before, I gave Philly the best player, Dallas the second best player, Giants got the third best player. I thought Washington got the worst. It was the least need. He's a good quality linebacker, wasn't needed at 19. They had a good defense already. They needed something on the offensive side of the ball. Offensive line, playmaker, something. So I thought Washington did the worst. I love what the Giants did. It just didn't love the player that they got. Let me see what else. I'm fine with Devonta Smith and how the draft panned out. Anyone you would have gotten if you didn't trade with Dallas probably would have been overdrafted, and you could have had filled later in the draft. If they stayed at 12, there wasn't a player for them. And if they stayed at 12, I would have done the Bears trade. That's what I would have done. But moving up to 10, it helps because you get the player that you wanted because you weren't going to get that player. So, yeah, if you stayed at 12, you either make the Bears trade and go back to 20, or you're probably ending up with Rashawn Slater. Unless San Diego called you and you really put it into San Diego's mind that you were going to take Rashawn Slater and move back one spot, but then you're in a spot where who are you taking at 13? So I think they did the best they could. What else we got here? Second round JOK from Notre Dame. Samuel Olajari. One of them likely be there at 37. You just heard what Adam said about Samuel. I tend to I like Samuel, but it's an interesting point he makes that Samuel, he doesn't view him as an outside guy. He is a little smaller. He's like 5'10". Olajari, if he's there at 37, would be a very interesting pick. And, man, just completely blanked. Where did Kuramoa went to Notre Dame. Whew, man, I completely blanked on where he is. The Notre Dame linebacker, Jeremiah Owusu-Kuramoa, he is an interesting athlete. His numbers were unbelievable. I mean, 56 tackles, 11.5 for loss, a sack, an interception, broke up passes. He's a good coverage linebacker, but he's 6'1", 215. He's not your, you look at Parsons, who's 240. That's a different linebacker. 240 and 215 are two different guys, So that's that. All right, let's go back to the text board here. What else we got? You guys are great on the text today, by the way. 403-0973. You guys are so right about the Bengals. They bought the 80-inch big screen TV over fixing the leaky roof. John D. Yeah, it's Pennywise. What's that? Pennywise something pound foolish or whatever. It was, you went and got the gadget when you had other holes. Yeah, you're sitting in the living room with an 80-inch screen and you got a leaky roof dripping on your head. Good way to put that, John D. Not only do the Birds have draft capital next year, but they don't have Wentz money coming off the cap next year. The Eagles' cap situation next year is very good. This was the only year they had the cap issues. They'll be out of cap hell next year with 3 first-round picks. So they are very set up to turn this thing around very quickly. Mike, I hate the pick. Jalen Hurts is a running quarterback. Well, that's incorrect. I mean, Hurts is not a running quarterback. He's a guy that can move, completed almost 70% of his passes in college. You would have to watch college football to understand that. But no, I wouldn't label Hurts a running quarterback. He's a guy that can make plays with his feet, but very accurate thrower. By the way, his arm and Joe Burrow's arm were equally as strong. So if you like Joe Burrow's arm and you like the way he plays quarterback, Hurts and Burrows have a pretty much exactly the same velocity, arm strength. Hurts, 68% of his passes completion. So obviously you don't know enough about Jalen Hurts. So that's fair. I mean, a lot of people just make generalizations. You're one of them. The Colts offense was run heavy. The Eagles offense could be run heavy too. They should have Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey, Sayamala, and Jordan Mailata. I'd run behind that line. Have fun stopping me. Miles Sanders, pretty good back. If they want to go run heavy, that's fine. You know what run heavy sets up? A lot of play action. You know what having a guy that can run like Devonta Smith sets up? Big plays down the field. Everything you said was about as incorrect and off base as a human being could be. But I appreciate you being a part of the show. Hurts is a poor man's Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens were last in passing. Well, that's an awful statement. I'm not even going to get into that one. What do you think of that comment there, Josh? Hurts is a poor man's Lamar Jackson.
First of all, they're completely different skill sets.
Well, anybody who's seen any football in their life would not make any comparison of those two.
If you go back to college, Lamar Jackson was a guy who basically had to carry a team on his back, and he had to spend a lot of time refining his passing talent. He never passed for more than 60% in college. Jalen Hurts was a power runner in college, not a speed runner like Lamar. People believe Lamar Jackson's actually faster than Michael Vick, by the way.
Yeah, Hurts is not a guy with a lot of speed.
Hurts is a power runner. He's a guy who is a power lifter, actually. The guy squats over 600 pounds, all right? He's way more powerful, way stronger, way more built than Lamar Jackson is.
Yeah.
His skill set lends him to be able to take on hits better than Lamar Jackson. And don't forget that he has a better ball through the wind than Lamar. Lamar played at Louisville. His ball got blown around a little bit, whereas Jalen Hurts can throw through the wind.
Yeah, Hurts has a way better arm than all those guys.
Yeah, it's what Daniel Jeremiah is now calling it horsepower. The guy has more horsepower on his arm.
That's interesting. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Watch the show live over at 97.3ESPN.com. So there are the text messages. By the way, thanks for the flyers. We'll get you the winner coming up on the other side. We'll tell you who that is. We'll have another pair of Flyers tickets later on in the show. I also, on the other side, will give you some second-round thoughts with Jeff Nadeau. He'll tell you the best bets for round 2 and thoughts on round 2. That's coming up next. Jeff Nadeau, the betting expert, of course, who joins us on Tuesdays. Going to talk about the odds for tonight's round 2. Coming up next. All right, Gerald Hutchinson, congratulations. You won Flyers tickets. 4-pack Saturday. Congratulations to you. By the way, speaking of the Phils, the lineup tonight is pretty hideous. McCutchen, Joyce, Hoskins, Miller, Bohm, Maton, Knapp, Herrera, Anderson. Doesn't sound like Anderson's too thrilled. Jeff Nadeau, BMOC, is here. Last year he had a viral video that went, well, viral when the Eagles took Jalen Hurts. I was actually thinking about checking in on your reaction last night when the Eagles made the trade up with Dallas. How you felt about that?
I was very happy because I knew at that point the Eagles were going to make the right decision. And, Mike, it was interesting because it became abundantly clear that if the Eagles did not trade, they were going to be in a weird spot. And
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
They stay at 12. I talked about this all week. They stay at 12 and make the same deal the Giants did with the Bears.
Yeah, that would have been what I would have did. I would have looked to move back. And I said all week, Mike, that to me, the third best receiver or the fourth best receiver in this draft is Rashad Bateman. And I could make the case I would have liked Rashad Bateman just as much as Devonta Smith. Rashad Bateman is a terrific receiver.
Well, that's what I said. You made the trade with the Bears. You stayed at 12. You move back to 20. You get the first-round pick next year. You could take Bateman at 20 if you wanted to.
And then I would have went corner at 37, which they still might do. But, yeah, I'm very happy with the decision. Look, Mike, I'm not going to jump on your guess, but I don't know what Sal Powell was talking about earlier. How are Jalen Reagor and Devonta Smith?
I didn't agree with him either on that.
I think it was a little out of line, frankly. Look, you got to do what you got to do. And while they did make a trade with the Dallas Cowboys, they also shut out the New York Giants and getting Devonta Smith.
The show game between the three NFC East teams was amazing. I mean, the Eagles jumping the Giants to take the Giants pick. Dallas jumping back to get Parsons, who they would have got at 10. The Giants saying, you took our guy, so we're getting out of here. It was great television.
I mean, you got to admit, Mike, we hate each other, the Giants and the Eagles, but you got to admit, the Eagles have really pawned the Giants the last year or so with that, with the playoff stuff last year. You got to extra hate the Eagles if you're a Giants fan today. But, yeah, I'm very happy with the decision. Devonta Smith was the best receiver in the country last year. We obviously saw what he did late in the season in the national title game. His ability to just kind of – Mike, I made this comparison earlier, and I got all this stuff about Marvin Harrison off the field, but he reminds me a lot of Marvin Harrison.
We said the same thing. I had Adam Kaplan on last hour. A scout told Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds the same thing, that this guy is a taller version of Marvin Harrison. That was the name that I brought up, too. I said, this guy's Marvin Harrison, with the upper body strength, but the small legs.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as Eagle fans, we're always negative. The flip side of that could be Todd Pinkston, which
well, he had small legs and a small upper body.
Yeah. But
what I would say, Jeff, to kind of give people like, all right, you didn't see Marvin Harrison, maybe you're a little young or whatever. To me, he is a bigger, taller, more polished, better receiving version of what Deshaun Jackson is, but just better, just faster, better, more polished, a better route runner. But the problem with Jackson was he was so damn small. But when he was healthy, and look, he stayed healthy for most of his career. As he got older, he started to break down a little bit. You couldn't stop the guy. He just ran right past you.
Right. And look, when it comes to work ethic, we obviously the elephant in the room when it comes to Devonta Smith is his body type. He is a bit of a beanpole. But, again, don't undervalue his work ethic. This is a guy that has plenty of time to go in and get strong, go in and add some thickness to himself. And look, is he DK Metcalf? No, but he's an elite receiver. He's a great route runner. He's going to make just everything a lot easier. And don't sleep on the rapport he's already built with his quarterback in Jalen Hurts. I think that was a big sticking point. I heard you mention that earlier. That's almost really important. And you've made some indecision and some bad decision. We know with this team, but they're trying to right their wrongs. And tonight, Mike, they've got two very important selections. They, as we've talked about, you and I don't think they're that far off. I really don't. And when you go out and get a guy like Devonta Smith We know the offensive line is going to be a lot healthier coming into the season. You've got a good running back. Defensively, if you can make some real nice decisions tonight, you could really be set up nicely.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And like the whole, so this whole thing is kind of an interesting. They lose that game purposely almost. It had people up in arms. Well, losing that game sets you up to put you in a very good spot. So now you're at 6. That gets you the report that Roseman had the intel that the Bengals were going to take Chase. Ended up happening. So they moved out because they thought the Bengals would take Chase. They go to 12, so they get an extra first-round pick. Then they moved themselves from 12, 2 spots up by just using a third-round pick to get Smith. So they wouldn't have got the players they wanted at 6 anyway. So in the end, people didn't want them to move from 6 because they wanted Chase or Pitts. Neither one of those guys were there. So I think even those people have to be happy with the result. If you were someone who didn't want to move from 6, you have to be thrilled with what happened, right? Because Chase and Pitts weren't there.
Right. It actually ended up working out really well for the Eagles. I mean, again, I was a lot higher on Horn and Surtain than I guess they were.
I like them too, but when they were both off the board, what were you going to do?
Right, and that's the thing. At 6, you could have got them. You're not going to take them 6. And at that point, and at 12, they weren't going to be there. So the Eagles had a real possibility, and we almost saw it, where they were in a pretty precarious situation where none of those players are available. Giants end up making the deal and go back. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, one of the worst selections in round 1 was Kadarius Toney. He is not a first-round player. That was a reach. For a team that –
though, Jeff, how I think badly they wanted Smith. And
exactly.
Because we couldn't get Smith, we'll take this deal, and then we'll get the knockoff version.
Right. No, that's 100%. That was exactly what I thought. It was all, see all these Giant fans. Oh, I'm so happy. Da, 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 da. No, you wanted Smith, and you're trying to sugarcoat it and pretend you like the pick. Look, at the end of the day, I would have went lineman even there. This group needs some protection on the right side. They get their guy Barkley back. They've got Daniel Jones. That's a pretty good offense, though, all of a sudden. I just thought Toney was a bit of a reach. But, yeah, all in all, I thought the pick was as good as it gets. Plus, Mike, I hit Devonta Smith to the Eagles at plus 450. So I was very happy with the decision.
You know what I did? I threw a bet in, and tonight we'll get to – I threw a quick bet in right before the draft on Rashawn Slater because I said they're going to take Rashawn Slater. So I said, you know what? The value was – it was like plus 600. I said the value's there. I thought – honestly, though, when they traded up, I thought they were trading up for Fields. I said, dude –
yeah,
this is the one where people hate Roseman because he's the smartest guy in the room, and Fields is so high on our draft board that we have to take him. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, no, and there was a report that came out from Stacey Dales, who's reporting from the NFL Network in Philadelphia, and she put out that the Eagles are going to go a left way of things, and it's just like, come on, man, with this. We're going to get a pass rusher or whatever. I heard Palantonio mention he wanted Kwity Paye. Wouldn't have hated it. I just felt like this team had to take either receiver or corner.
Well, that was based off what he said the week before when he was on that inside the NovaCare, they were set that he had been told that they feel, much like you and I, that they are closer than people think they are in the division, and that they want to get back to their roots of drafting offense or defensive line because that's the way they built their Super Bowl team.
Yeah, and look, you have to win in the trenches. I think, though, in the trenches, though, they're actually pretty good. I mean, their offensive line is very good and run fully healthy. They've got plenty of depth now. You allowed guys like Jack Driscoll and players like that to come in and get some reps and to have that experience. We're not dealing anymore, Mike, with David Malk and these guys that never play. These guys come in and play and be legitimate. As far as what I think you do going forward, I think the Eagles are in a really interesting situation because you look at the first 4 picks of the second round. None of those 4 teams need a linebacker. It's conceivable to believe that Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah may be there. If he's there, you must take him. I mean, he is a top 13 pick. He's a hybrid Derwin James type of player. He fits what they're looking for. He can cover tight ends. He's got unbelievable athleticism, and he has dropped significantly. That is a guy, if he's there, you have to take. If he's not there, and Asante Samuel Jr. is, I would go Asante Samuel. It's pretty simple here. But again,
you like Nick Bolton?
Say that again?
You like Nick Bolton?
I do. I like Nick Bolton. I think for me, though,
What about Olajari if he's there?
That's an interesting move as well. Do you go with that hybrid kind of edge guy that can play either linebacker or down lineman on the end? I just look at Camaroa and he was an All-American. I thought he was the best linebacker in the country at times last year. And again, Parsons didn't play, but to get a player of that caliber at 37, and again, I think you're going to be in a position to take him. None of the teams in front of the Eagles have a need. Now, again, someone could trade up and go out and grab him, but I think that the cornerback group is deep enough, Mike, where you don't necessarily have to take a corner here at 37. You can wait to 70 and take a Paulson Adebo, Ifeanyi Melinou from Syracuse, Kelvin Joseph from Kentucky. There are plenty of options that this group can go. Do you go with another receiver, at some point? I mean, I don't know if they'll do it in these 2 picks, but I think they need another receiver, maybe a bigger player like a Tylan Wallace or Amon-Ra St. Brown, somebody like that. I don't know.
Definitely. And by the way, this is another underrated part about the 3rd-round pick they gave up was 87, not 70. So they kept the better of the 2 3rd-round picks. Keep that in mind as well. So they do have 37 and 70 tonight. And that's why earlier I suggest I wouldn't be shocked if they move somewhere between 37 and 70 and got themselves back up again, because they have what, 3 6 to a 5th, a 4th. I mean, they still have all of these picks that you don't want to be making picks after the 5th round in this year's class.
This team has the real ability, if they could do that and get 3 picks in the next 2 or 3 rounds, they have the ability to make the right decisions, to be a really decent football team next year. If they can make the right decisions, and again, to me, you've got to get a linebacker, you've got to get a corner, maybe even get 2 corners. I would look even in like if you get a 3rd option, a Caden Stearns, a safety out of Texas. I think he's a guy you take a look at.
What if the safety from TCU's on the board at 37?
Well, I don't think it's weird, Mike, because one of the weirdest things, I like to look at where FanDuel or the different draft, sports books have the odds. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are the first team to pick tonight, I think Trevon Mooring, the kid out of TCU, the safety, is a slam dunk for them. I don't know why their odds are wild. Like, to pick a corner, they're minus 550 to take a cornerback. And I look at that team, and they have Sidney Jones. They have the kid out of Florida they drafted. They have Shaquille Griffin, who they picked up. I think they take Mooring. If he's there at 37, he would be a guy as well. But for me, it's a defensive back or in a camera there.
Tyson Campbell's another guy I like, Georgia.
Yes. It's got to be defense. It's got to be.
Has to be. But I thought Roseman said last night, we stuck to our board. We're going to stick to our board. We're not going to drift to need. It kind of indicated we floated from our board in the last, I don't know if he's taking a shot at somebody. Hey, we've in the past, we've been kind of floating off our board. Who's pumping that information in out there? I don't know. I thought that was interesting. So,
yeah. Real quick, I think, and I'm reading your live chat, one of your commenters is making a point about Zach Ertz. I think you got to look to move him as well. I mean, can you make something like that happen? I think I agree with you. You've got to look to try to get back into with another pick. If you can get 3 picks in the 2nd and 3rd round, I think you set yourself up really well.
Yeah, I definitely – Ertz, another good point. That's what I'm talking about. You can get from 70 up into the 50s, maybe, if you say, hey, I'll give you a 5th or 6th plus Ertz if we can move up 8 spots, 10 spots here. So definitely something to keep an eye on. All right, what's something you're looking at this weekend?
I'm focused on the draft, Mike. This is
all draft.
Yeah, to me, this is my favorite time of the year. I love, and I've said before, I get almost more irritated with my team when they make bad decisions in the 2nd and 3rd round, because I've always valued deep looks into these drafts and finding talent. And I think this team hasn't done well at doing that. And I think, for me, I'm all into it. I love the late picks, because we've seen players like Tom Brady come out of the 6th round and be the best quarterback ever. So I'm always looking at it. I'm also keeping an eye on the NBA. I've had some success, not recently in the NBA. The NBA recently has been tough, but and also keeping an eye on next season. Getting before we know, college football will be starting again, the NFL, everything.
All right, Jeff Nadeau, BMOC at Jeff Nadeau. Tonight, it's round 2 and 3. He'll be watching it. Watch his reactions. Follow him on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau. All right, man, I'll talk to you.
Thanks, Mike.
Always good. And, of course, he'll be back on Tuesday when all this is over. We'll take a look at Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, all that stuff. We'll have those odds for you. By the way, Devonta Smith, 18-1 to be the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Kadarius Toney, 40-1 for the Giant fans out there. Happy Hour Friday is upon us. Yes, indeed. It is Happy Hour Friday with the PT. Oh, my word. We've reached the Friday portion of this week's Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. He's Pete Thompson. This is Happy Hour Friday. And, of course, he, like all guests, appears to be the boardwalk on the hotline. Holy moly. Now, PT, did you stay up all the way through the draft last night?
I did, much to the chagrin of a 5 a.m. wake-up call for teaching this morning. What was it, about 12:30 by the time it finally went over to the news? I mean, so much for that 11 o'clock window, right?
Well, I mean, you knew it was going to – I mean, they didn't make the first pick until like 8:20 last night when the thing was supposed to kick off at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Hey, we have so many sponsors we need to get in here. It was the second largest ratings of all time for the NFL.
Really?
Yep, only topped by, of course, last year's draft.
Because I got to tell you, too, there was so much intrigue. There was so much drama. There was so much we didn't know, you know.
Right.
I haven't seen my girlfriend's son in like a month, and he came over and spent a whole night with me, only because we were both into it.
The drama of when 10 comes up, and then I'm standing in my living room, and I see we have a trade, and it's Dallas, and the screen changes from Dallas's silver and blue over to green. I said, are you kidding me?
It was unbelievable.
Just made a trade. Now, when that trade happened, Peter, what player did you think the Eagles were trading up to get?
To be honest with you, I mean, first and foremost, I was shocked when both corners went, right? I think that was what surprised everybody the most, you know.
It's the whole draft.
Yeah, to see J.C. Horn go at 8 and to see Surtain go at 9, it was like, oh my God. And with Penei Sewell going to Oregon, believe it or not, there was a part of me that thought like, oh, the Eagles are going to get Rashawn Slater. That's who I almost thought, like, not that that's a sexy pick, but that's who I thought they might go for at 12. And like you, when the Dallas Cowboys had trade, you know, Michael, my girlfriend's son, says, oh, trade, you know, and he says, they're trading. And I said, well, they're not trading with us. And then, bam, the Eagles logo comes up and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Mind blown. I mean, you just couldn't believe it. So, yeah, who did I think they were going to get once I heard 10? That's when I was like, oh, you know what? Devonta Smith is on the board. I think that's who they're going to go with. And I'll tell you, Mike, way back in the day, and Josh, I think, kind of gave me, either Josh or you or both gave me crap for this, but way back in the day, like after the national championship game, and he had such a great game, I fell in love with Devonta Smith and said that's who they should go for at 6. So, I mean, I saw a lot of narratives last night. Look, it's really hard to rip, but where are all the Howie haters today, Mike Gill?
Right? Hey, you don't have to put that in my direction.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, where are the Howie? I mean, they could have stayed at 6. It would have been a sensible pick. Instead, they moved down to 12, then back up to 10. They get a 2022 first-round pick, and they trade that third-round pick that they had from Indy. And I heard you today. That was smart, too. It wasn't just a third-round pick. It's the lower of the 2 third-round picks.
Well, you can make an argument, Peter. You can make an argument that if they stayed at 6, they would have still ended up with Devonta Smith.
Yes, because everybody, you remember we were in love. And Devonta Smith was my first love, but then I started watching that tape on Kyle Pitts, and I realized he was a Philly guy. And you know, you had all these guests on talking about he's a unicorn. They wouldn't have had Kyle Pitts. They never would have had Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts.
No, I mean that's the whole thing too. Is all these people said they should have stayed at 6. They should have stayed at 6. They would have got this impact player. Chase was not there. Pitts was not there. They made the right move. And look. This is, again, where Roseman, whether you like him or not, you have to give him credit. He got the intel that said Cincinnati was taking Chase. That's the guy we want. So we're going to get out of there, get a first-round pick, do some more research. Now refine the guy that we want. It turns out to be Devonta Smith. I thought they had a great night last night. And, look, it doesn't mean he's going to work out. It doesn't mean Devonta Smith's going to be a good player. But with what they did to go from 6 to 12, they get a first-round pick, to move back to 12, 10, to give up a third-round pick because they got that from another deal that they had the draft capital. Whether you are the biggest Howie hater of all time, and I think there's a line down the street with those guys, even the Howie haters have to say, you know what, I got to give it to him.
I think you got to tip your cap. And I got to be honest, the people that are upset, like, oh, what did you might still have gotten it. No, the Giants were going to take them if you didn't move ahead. If you didn't flip flop with Dallas and move to where you are, you're not getting Devonta Smith. I'm sorry. You're just not. And that was proven later on when the Giants had their pick and they took the kid out of Florida, right? Who, of course, was overshadowed by Pitts, but that's a pretty good receiver out of Florida as well. So at the end of the day, that tells you right there that the Giants were looking for a receiver, right?
Okay, so all week long,
Darius Toney is who I'm talking about.
I mapped out the scenario all week long of the Eagles at 12, calling the Bears at 20, and saying, we'll take a first-round pick if you want to move up to 12. The Giants got the deal that I proposed all week, and I'm torn on whether I would have rather the Eagles make that trade and get a fourth first-round pick next year.
Yeah, that is a little craziness. I mean, but how many, I mean, I guess you can never have enough first round picks, right? And you can never have enough draft capital. And kudos to you. Look, your deal came true. It just wasn't the Eagles that made that deal. It was the Giants that made that deal. But, I went to bed a very happy gentleman last night because I look at it like this. Listen, and a lot of people came to me today and they were like, what is size PT? PT, 165 pounds. They said, the guy at school today says to me, Mr. Avani says to me, PT, when was the last time you were 165 pounds? I said, when I was 12. It's been a long time since I've been that skinny and light. But I got to be honest, don't you think the league has changed, Mike Gill? Don't you think that, it's not the 70s and 80s league where guys are just getting cracked and broken out there? Plus, in order to hurt somebody, you got to catch them, don't you? Right? You actually got to, bring them down. And I heard you saying 6 feet, right? How tall is Tyreek Hill? He's not 6 feet or 6'1", right? I mean,
the one thing with Devonta Smith, yes, he is 166 pounds is what he weighed in at. That is very small. Now, it's not like Deshaun Jackson was about that when he got into the league and never got much bigger. He's only about 175 pounds. Now, you'd say, look, Deshaun Jackson, he gets hurt a lot. When he was healthy and when he was younger, he was one of the toughest guys to defend on the deep ball. This guy is a much more polished receiver.
I agree.
Deshaun Jackson is not a number one wide receiver. He's a number one playmaker. This guy's the number one wide receiver who happens to be a playmaker as well. He is small down low, his lower half, but his upper body, he is a strong separation, get your hands off of me type of receiver. And I definitely I am pretty surprised that they ended up with this situation, but I definitely go back to Horn going 8, Surtain going 9. That changed the dynamics, and it got the Eagles Devonta Smith. And we might do a 30 for 30 with the 30 for 30 on the 3 NFC East teams and the inner struggles of what happened there, where Dallas wanted the corner, they were gone. The Giants wanted this wide out. The Eagles jumped them. Dallas took the linebacker. They could have got it 10, got it 12 by trading within their division. I mean, what an unbelievable 20-minute span there.
It was such drama and it was so craziness, when Dallas and then it matched up with the Eagles that's who they were going to trade with. You're sitting there thinking, oh my God, is this really happening? Right. And then, that trade, the ink was barely dry on that one when the Bears made their move with the Giants so they could go up and get Justin Fields.
Soon as the Eagles made their pick, it was almost instantaneous that the Bears, it was almost like Gettleman was like, if they take Devonta Smith, this deal is happening. Like, let's just wait. If they take Smith, you got a deal. Smith, you got a deal. I mean, it was instantaneous. And Gettleman talked about it today. He almost pretty much gave a hat tip to Roseman. Not to say that Roseman outfoxed me, but it was kind of down that road that Roseman, really was working the phones pretty hard.
Yeah, I like to hear that. When an opposing GM almost basically acknowledges, yeah, you got me, I mean, you're right. This one, we used to get excited because they moved ahead of Dallas to get Dallas Goedert. This could end up in the history of the team being the better move ultimately. I got to tell you, too, there's people out there that are like, but he plays the same position as Jalen Reagor. First of all, he's a lot more polished receiver than Jalen Reagor is. He won the damn Heisman.
But those guys complement each other.
I couldn't agree more.
Right. Reagor was not a number one wide receiver. Reagor was brought in here to be a complement to what they had already, not to be the number one guy.
Yeah, and how much better does Jalen Reagor going to end up being when you start to swing your defenses toward how do we stop the Heisman Trophy winner in Devonta Smith? I mean, it's a home run hit to me, but yet that's day one. There's so much intrigue going on tonight, including, they still have a chance to get a legacy corner, if you will. If Horn and if the two corners were legacy players, right? You know what I'm saying? Like two guys that J.C. Horn and Surtain, their dads both played in the NFL. Then you could also get this Asante Samuel Jr. guy, right? I mean, didn't we have the dad in our uniform in the Eagles uniform at one point in time? So that would be fitting if they're able to pull that off. Or who's the guy now? Somebody reached out to me on Facebook and was asking me, who's the guy that watched the tapes of Reggie White when he was a kid? Everybody's hot for him too. The Alabama guy.
Who, Barrymore?
Yeah, yep, they love him. That's who a lot of my Facebook peoples are.
Well,
he's
like the one draftable defensive tackle. There was not one defensive tackle taken in round one. Christian Barmore is the guy you're talking about. He was the number one D tackle on the board. He did not get picked in the first round. So if he's there at 12, at 37, I would not be shocked if the Eagles went that route. I would not be shocked if they took the Georgia kid, Olazari. I would not be shocked if they took the Georgia corner, Tyson Campbell, because they need a corner bad.
Yep. Go opposite of Darius Slay. I got to tell you, I went to bed last night, not disappointed at all. And it wasn't but then the intrigue was to watch all these names we talked about leading into it. Where did they end up? Kwity Paye ends up at 21 to the Colts. Caleb Farley was a name that came up at one point in time. And, he goes to the Titans, right? You're sitting there watching these names go by of guys and thinking to yourself, I still feel pretty damn good about who the Eagles got. Vera Tucker, not long after the Eagles picked there. And
that was 13-14. You had Slater go 13, Vera Tucker go 4. Slater go 13, Vera Tucker go 14. Kwity Paye went 21 to the Colts, which is interesting because that Bears trade, if you would have made that, you would have been at 20 and conceivably could have taken Kwity Paye at 20 and got the first round pick from the Bears for next year.
Yeah, how about Belichick and the Patriots? How about him getting a quarterback, and he didn't have to go anywhere?
Crazy,
it's unbelievable.
Crazy.
I mean, I don't know if the guy's going to be any good or not. I mean, but
how about this quote from Howie Roseman? He said, "Quote: We've made some mistakes forcing picks and positions. So we spent so much time on this draft and process, and so much discussions about the players in this draft that we're not going to reach. We're going to take the best guys." How do you read into that?
I almost read like that's him admitting that he's the one that reached before, or he felt a little bit. You don't see it that way?
No. That to me is him saying everybody else in the room wanted this, that, and the other. When they finally let me have my way, and this guy's voice is out and that guy's voice was out, I could do what I wanted to do.
Oh, I didn't see. Say the quote again, because I didn't read it. I didn't interpret that way. Read it to me again, because I want to listen to it again and see if I'm missing a word.
Okay, I will put it up on the screen here.
Even better, because I'm a visual learner, Mike Gill.
I know you can't. You will not comprehend if I just read it to you.
You're right, because you read it to me once, and I apparently missed what you are interpreting out of it. But I might see it differently.
Our buddy Rob Motti tweeted this out from I guess it was last night. Yeah, Howie Roseman spoke last night.
Sure.
The quote from Roseman was, quote, "We've made some mistakes forcing picks and positions. So we spent so much time on this draft and process and so much discussions about the players in this draft that we're not going to reach. We're going to take the best guys." So it's like we made mistakes forcing picks and positions, almost like, hey, we need a linebacker. I need to get a linebacker. Well, guess what? I don't have a good linebacker on my board. You want me to take a linebacker? I will, but there's not much here.
Which linebacker are you talking about? Like the Temple
the one that never got on the field last year, Davion Taylor.
Oh, yeah, that's true. All right. I can, now that I'm looking at it and reading it again, the end of the quote is the end of the quote right there. We're going to take the best guys.
Right. And that goes back to the whole thing where the scouts like Rieger, but the analytics guys like Jefferson, which way do we go? We didn't take the best player. We listened to X, Y, or Z, and that's why we took this guy instead of just going with what we thought was the best player and taking that guy.
I mean, and not for nothing, but every so often, we all think like the teams all lie before the draft and they're all just spewing BS and you can't believe a word they say. Remember when he had his pre-draft sit down with the media, the one quote that he pulled out that Howie distinctly said was, receivers come in all shapes and sizes. So the people that was almost him tipping his hand of, if Devonta Smith is there, you bet your butt we're taking him.
Yeah.
And they did.
Well, and
I love it.
Yeah, and they jumped over the team that wanted them in New York and traded with their division rival in Dallas to get it done. It was unbelievable to see it all unfold like that. All right, now we have tonight 37-70. I would say, PT, that Zach Ertz has got to be in play tonight.
Sure. So then you can get like that third round pick back, maybe, right?
Move up like from 70 to say 57 or from 70 to 60, something like that.
Right. I mean, how many picks are they into the second round? 5 picks in or something like that? That 37th overall, that's pretty high up to begin with, right? So, I mean,
it's Jacksonville, Jets, Falcons, Dolphins, Eagles.
Yeah, so that's what I thought. They're the 5th one into the second round. That one you don't worry about, but I like where your head's at. And obviously, I think we talked about this on Tuesday. Zach Ertz alone isn't going to get you a lot of moving up. It's Zach Ertz and something else, right?
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to do, hey, I have 70. I'll give you Zach Ertz in 70 if you let me go to 60. So you drop back 10 spots, and I'll give you Zach Ertz.
There you go. I mean, there's
like with Devonta Smith here, you want Ertz, Smith, Rieger, Sanders, Goddard. You okay with that?
Do you really think Ertz is going to be back with this football team? I mean, am I okay with it? Sure, but I also think that
they're under the cap, and I mean now they're under the cap.
Yeah, I just think they're far enough away from this is a 2-year thing too. Yes, we talked about that they can get good, fast, quicker than, just because they only won 4 games last year doesn't mean that they're going to win 5 next year. They could make a significant jump, and they only have to go 3 games. If they had won 3 more games, they would have been in a playoff spot. Even though it was a 7-9 playoff spot, they would have been in a playoff spot. So I'm okay.
Just think about, you talk about they would have been in a playoff spot. Well, who cares? The game that was the closest for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was the game they played against the Washington football team.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter they won 7 games, the Washington football team.
Did you see tweets last night, too, about the people? Remember how vilified the Eagles crucified they got for tanking against the Washington football team in that last game? Did you see all those tweets? And were you subscribing to that theory, too, that if they didn't tank, they don't get into the spot where they get into to start this whole scenario?
Oh, yeah. The fact that they lost that game set this all up.
Yeah, that's the genesis. That's the very first stepping stone of everything.
Right, because they would have had the 9th pick had they won that game.
When they make this movie, who's going to play Howie?
They won that game and had the 9th pick, I think it was. You would have got Patrick Surtain if you just stayed there.
True. But I do like who they got.
All right, it's a Tuesday. It's a happy hour Friday with PT. What else was going on? Oh, by the way,
Flyers were officially eliminated. You could take that prop jersey down.
Oh, yeah, that's why I'm going to put it up or down. Bryce Harper's not in the lineup tonight. Apparently has nothing to do with him getting hit. He injured his wrist. That's why he hasn't been playing. So
it was very classy that he sent a text to that guy, too. After I heard you, I was eagerly listening to what your reaction was going to be. And I know you're a lifelong baseball guy. And, the Phillies did the right thing and not overreacting the night of. And then they did kind of the wrong thing the next night.
Yeah. Do you think that Schweim and I agree?
Oh, God, no. Schweim wants to drill everybody. You hit my guy. Mike, come on. You hit my guy.
God almighty. I love the guy. Oh, man. I wish I could live in the same year he's in. 1978 would be great all the time.
Sure. 8-track and everybody drinking age was 18.
No, but you're right. I love the fact that Harper put that out there, that he did not think that he threw at him purposely and just wanted him to know that.
Yep. I thought that was very classy.
It's obvious he didn't.
No way.
I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I might need your help with something.
Okay, I'll be there.
I'll call you later.
All right, take care, buddy.
All right, Pete Thompson, Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash, live on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, he's one of the best in the business when it comes to the draft. He's Tony Pauline. We're going to break down the picks, his thoughts on Smith, how the Eagles did, and so much more with Tony Pauline from the Believe Podcast Network. He joins me here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Hey, right now, that conversation with Pete Thompson, I got another 4-pack of Flyers tickets to give away. So if you want to go to the Flyers Devils tomorrow, a 4-pack of tickets could be yours. All you need to do is send me a text, 609-403-0973, and use the hashtag Flyers. Hashtag Flyers. First one to do it. You're going to the game tomorrow night. Flyers, Devils. You can hear it at 7 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. But the first person who sends me a text with the hashtag Flyers, you're going to the game at the Wells Fargo Center. Thanks to 97.3 ESPN and the Sports Bash. All right, a Friday edition of the Sports Bash. We've been breaking it down from all the angles, but the man who can give us more information than most on this topic, Tony Pauline, the NFL draft analyst at Pro Football Network, the Believe Podcast Network, and round 1 in the books, round 2 and 3 tonight. You can listen to all the coverage on 97.3 ESPN. So let's bring Tony Pauline in to get his thoughts on what happened in round number 1 and some thoughts ahead on round number 2. He is live in Cleveland as the draft is set to happen in just a short time here. Tony, thanks for taking a couple minutes with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, it was wild last night. We had the 3 quarterbacks go off the board. Where did you think the draft really took its first turn?
Trey Lance wasn't that big of a surprise to me. If you've been following me on Wednesday Night Show, I do with Trey Wingo, formerly of ESPN. I said that's the way they seem to be moving. 4, 5, 6, 7. I think J.C. Horn at Carolina was a bit of a surprise. I thought Denver taking Surtain was a bit of a surprise. I don't think they were bad picks. I just think that they were surprising picks. I think Denver right now is probably going to try and make a run to get Aaron Rodgers. I don't think there were any real major surprises in the top 13, even 14 when the Jets traded back up to get Elijah Vera Tucker. Because I'd said that was a guy that they were going to trade up for. Vera Tucker had been gaining a lot of momentum. There was not any point in time where I thought it really changed on a dime where you had to really step back. I thought the Giants pick was very surprising. Although again, Tony was projected as a first rounder. Maybe if I had to look at it, I'd say maybe the Raiders at 17 taking Alex Leatherwood. Because Leatherwood was a second-round pick, and once again, the Raiders overdrafted a player.
Yeah, right. That's funny. I mean, at the same time, people are probably looking like, "Wait, what? What's going on here?" Oh, it's the Raiders pick. Tony Pauline. All right, so locally here, when Philly makes the trade with Dallas, that's a little shocking because you're like, all right, we had that little 3-team NFC East gamut, but that all happens why? Mainly because the 2 corners go, right? Is that the genesis of why the 3 NFC East teams all jumbled positions?
Not only the 2 corners, Jalen Waddle was off the board. So really the speed was off the board for the Eagles, and they wanted, either the corner or a speed receiver. I thought, and I had been reporting, they could have pulled it in a surprise and selected Kwity Paye, but they made the move to the other Alabama receiver, Devonta Smith.
Yeah, so Philly jumps to 10 and takes Devonta Smith. Give us a little insight on him, the player, what we think he might turn into at the next level and how he fits into Philadelphia.
He's a tremendous receiver. I mean, he's a complete player at the position, runs good routes, has soft, supple hands, excellent focus as well as concentration. Not the fastest guy in the world, but fast enough to get deep. Tracks the ball in the air, gets up in a crowd, comes away with a difficult catch. I mean, the problem for him is he's 166 pounds, and he's probably not going to get that much bigger. I mean, even in time, maybe he gets up into the mid-170s at the most. So, people compare him to Deshaun Jackson, who also had a lot of success with the Eagles, but was a second-round pick. He doesn't have the true downfield speed or explosion of Deshaun Jackson. He's not really the home run threat he was, although he's probably a better receiver entering the league. I think he's a guy that, you're going to have to protect. You may have to line him up in the slot. You may have to line him up back off the line of scrimmage to keep him away from press coverage. He's going to have to find ways to separate, which he usually does. But when you throw him the ball, he's going to catch it. And, now he's hooked up with a guy that he's got some sort of history with, or he's somewhat familiar with, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Obviously, at that spot at 12, they probably, no corners are here. We know that the Giants might be interested. They jump over because if they stay at 12, Tony, I talked about this all week, was if I'm Howie Roseman at 12, I'm calling the Bears all week long and saying, look, your quarterback's Andy Dalton. You want a quarterback or not, you're going to have to give us a first-round pick. And then the Bears make the deal with the Giants. So is it obvious to you that the Giants wanted Smith?
I thought it could be Jalen Waddle. I thought it could be one of the Alabama receivers. Did I have inside information that was the way the Giants were looking coming into the draft? No, I didn't think that at all. I actually thought it would have been Micah Parsons, who was still available at that point in time, because the Giants need someone who can get pressure up the field. The Giants need more of an impact player on defense. I thought it would have been Micah Parsons before Devonta Smith. I can't say that it was apparent to me or obvious, or even that I even had an inkling from inside sources that Smith was the guy for the Giants.
Yeah, that's that whole thing there. The Giants bounce back and they go to 20. Because I'm thinking to myself, if Philly goes to 20, they get the 4th first-round pick potentially next year, and then they could have got Kwity Paye at 20, which is a guy they kind of liked even if they were at 12, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. They liked Kwity Paye a lot. I think at some point in time, the Eagles have a lot of draft capital, or projected to have a lot of draft capital because of the Carson Wentz trade.
Right.
And I know there were a lot of Jet fans who were upset because their team moved up to grab Olivier Tucker. I think, at some point in time, if you think you have the opportunity to grab a player that can be really good, if not great, you got to roll the dice and you got to take the chance. And I'm sure that's what the Eagles thought with that selection. Now, they did it last year with Jalen Reagor, so you got to wonder, they got 2 smaller receivers, 2 guys that you're going to have to protect from press coverage, 2 similar playing styles. Reagor's a little bit quicker, a little bit faster as far as his second gear. But still, when you feel you've got the chance to get a really good player and you've got future picks, you got plenty of future picks, go for it.
Yeah. How did you, Tony Pauline, Belief Podcast Network, and the head draft analyst at Pro Football Network, how did you look at Waddle and Smith? How did you have those 2 guys?
I think Waddle's got more upside because of his speed, because of his ability to take it the distance, because of his ability to help out as a receiver, return specialist, running reverses, but he wasn't nearly as complete as Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith has a much more complete game, much more polished game. I thought that if Devonta Smith entered last year's draft, he would have been the first receiver taken, selected before his teammates Henry Ruggs or Jerry Jeudy. I think basically what you're looking at is what you're getting with Devonta Smith. With Jalen Waddle, you hope you're getting something special.
It's interesting because Roseman initially traded from 6 to 12. Did you like that move? And now hindsight, do you like how it all kind of played out from 6, losing that game purposely, essentially, 6 to 12 up to 10? Do you think, that they ended up doing, pulling the right strings?
I mean, the only value at staying at 6 was you would have had options of more players, primarily Jalen Waddle. I don't think you're taking Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn with that 6th pick of the draft. I think they were probably surprised that both corners were off the board by the time they were called to the clock, but that's the risk you take. And the fact is they got a lot of future draft picks, moving forward for that move down.
Tony, let's look at 2 and 3, 37. What are some of the first couple names you anticipate going off the board tonight when this draft kicks off?
I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker from Notre Dame, is still on the board. He had a first-round grade from me. Azeez Ojulari, the pass rusher from Georgia, he had a first-round grade, but as I had been reporting last week, his combine medicals came back with big red flags, which is why he fell out of the first round. Tevin Jenkins, the athletic tackle from Oklahoma State, is available. There's some off-the-field questions about his personality, about is he a confident player, but he is very good on film. And then the top safety on the board, Trevon Moehrig of TCU, is still available.
That should be kind of interesting there. Is this I think the top part of the second round, as you mentioned, there's a couple first round guys that kind of fell here because where did you think the reaches were on Thursday night that those guys went into 1 and some of these guys are still available?
I mean, the way the pass rushers fell at the very end of the first round with Joe Tryon and Peyton Turner, and I had reported that Turner was gaining momentum. I didn't think he was going to be a first-round pick. I think even Gregory Rousseau, to a lesser extent, those pass rushers, when they went where they went late in first round, that was a mild surprise, which pushed some of these guys out of the first round.
All right, Tony Pauline, you like 2 and 3? Where's the depth fall off? Is 2 and 3 solid? Falls off at 4? Where's this draft going to kind of take a little dip?
Depends on the position. I mean, you're going to have good tackles through the third round. You're going to have good receivers through the third round. There are still some good quarterback on the board. There are some real good traditional space off the ball linebackers that will be available late in round 2 and through the third round. But, a position like tight end after Kyle Pitts, it's all bad.
All right. Tonight, round 2 and 3 coverage begins at 6 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tony Pauline, the NFL draft analyst at ProFootballNetwork.com. Make sure you check that out and the Believe Podcast Network, and we'll wrap it all up, of course, on Saturday with round 4 through 7 here on 97.3 ESPN. It starts at noon. Tony, live in Cleveland. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Great breakdown on the wide receiver stuff. Waddle, more upside. You know what you're getting from Smith. And what are you getting? A likely number 1 wide receiver, a guy who's a big playmaker. And look, he said it. I think we all agree. The one knock on him is the size. He's got 166 pounds, and that's going to be something that he might break down at some point. He might not. I mean, look, you look at a guy like Henry Ruggs. He weighs 185 pounds. That is 20 pounds bigger. But what did he just say? Henry Ruggs is 5'11", 188. Right? 5'11", 188. And Smith is 6'1", 166 pounds. Then you have a guy like Jerry Jeudy. I'm picking the guys that all went to Alabama. Jerry Jeudy, who went to Denver, I forget what number last year. He went 15, I want to say. 6'1", 193. So he's got the same stature height-wise. He is about 30 pounds bigger than Devonta Smith. But what did Tony Pauline just say? If Smith was in last year's draft class, he would have gone ahead of both Jeudy and Ruggs. There you go. That he would have gone ahead of both of those guys in last year's draft class. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And, of course, you can watch the show live at 97.3ESPN.com. If you don't follow Tony, he's at Tony Pauline. He's really good on the draft. He's been doing it for a long, long time. He started the new network with Trey Wingo on the Pro Football Network. They do a live video stream, similar to what we do with our radio show on YouTube. So check that out. They'll be doing all the draft coverage. One thing that Tony mentioned, too, is the fact that Philadelphia, who went from 6 to 12, that if they wanted Chase, they weren't getting Chase. The difference is at 6, if you stayed at 6, you weren't going to take not Asante Samuel, the other guy whose father played in the league. You weren't going to take Patrick Surtain, and you weren't going to take J.C. Horn at number 6. So the question is, at number 6, were you going to take Devonta Smith? Were you going to take Jalen Waddle? You got that player at 10 and got an extra first-round pick. It is baffling to me as we sit here on the eve of the second round that guy, that people out there, mostly, gentlemen, nice gentlemen, I believe. Most people who listen to the show are very nice people. Got a couple people here and there that are not as nice, but whatever. Don't like that Philadelphia move out of 6. If you stayed at 6, what would you have done? If you stayed at 6, what would you have done? 609-403-0973. Couple messages that have come in later on in the show I want to get to. Jalen, I'm actually very encouraged by this offense this year if the offensive line can stay healthy. Well, I've been saying that for a while. The Eagles' offensive line stays healthy. They could compete in the division, I would imagine. Sirianni said he will be shifting Rieger and Smith all over the field and exploiting matchups, Hurts and Sanders, big plays. Think about this. If Smith can actually play, and there's no evidence at the NFL level that he can, just going off of what he did in college. If Devonta Smith can actually play, Sanders and Smith and Goddard, just those 3 guys there, that's a handful. You throw in, maybe Rieger can play. Maybe he stinks. I have no idea. Can Fulgham play or does he stink? I really don't know. I would be more inclined to say that Fulgham is average at best. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I would be more inclined to say at best he's average, and that's being really kind. But you have Sanders, a good offensive line. You've got Smith and Goddard. I don't know what's going to happen with Ertz. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. It is a happy hour Friday here. We'll get the sound of the day coming up in just a little bit on the other side. And look, the one thing this weekend that Philadelphia needs to try to find is a way to get another corner or two more corners in here. You've got to get a corner in here. Got to get a corner. Maybe 37 is the pick. Tyson Campbell, keep that name in mind. People are asking me on here, what would I do at 37 tonight? Campbell would be one guy that I would be jumping on at 37. Where is my list of guys? I wrote the article for the website today that you can take a look at 973ESPN.com. There you go. But Tyson Campbell's the one corner of the guys that are left that excites me the most. If I had a chance to take one of the corners at 37, I like him probably more than I like Asante Samuel, just for the size, and I think he's more of an outside guy. If I'm looking at I wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville took Jenkins from Oklahoma State. I think the Jets, kind of an interesting team. Who's the running back? Le'Veon Bell's gone. They need a running back there. Do you take Javonte Williams at 34? Atlanta needs a defensive player. I mean, bad. So you could see them take a corner. Olajari, another guy in play there. But at 37, if Philadelphia gets Owusu Cormo, we're on Monday having a good time. He's a pretty good player. In fact, if you look at some of the best player boards, just took positions out, I've seen him as high as 12. I've seen him as a top 15 player in the entire draft, just the fact that he plays linebacker. So if we are on Monday and Jeremiah Owusu-Cormo is the player, I think the Eagles did an excellent job. Elijah Moore would be another guy. At 37, Elijah Moore, I think that's a good job. Christian Barmore at 37, good job. Morig at 37, really good job. Don't be surprised if Landon Dickerson is a pick there. Terrence Marshall could be in play. The fact that they took the wide receiver last night. Jabril Cox, probably a little early. Tyson Campbell, keep his name in the mix. Molden from Washington, probably a little bit of a reach. Nick Bolton, the linebacker from Missouri. He's another guy because of the position that he plays. But you heard what Roseman said last night. We're taking the best player, not from need, best player. So keep that in mind. And then, of course, again, they pick at 70. So we're back on Monday with all that. But before we go, we got the sound of the day. By the way, congratulations to Robbie Stanton. He got a family 4-pack of tickets to go see the Flyers play. He is going to see the Flyers play tomorrow night. Congratulations, Robbie. All right, here we go. Sound of the day. We try to get 5 in if we can. By the way, Josh has no game night tonight. So we go right to draft coverage coming up in about 10 minutes here on the Sports Bash. All right? So stick around for that. What time's the actual first pick? 7?
7 o'clock.
I would imagine so, right?
7 o'clock, yeah. Everyone's going to have an hour pregame show. Or if you're watching on television, 4-hour pregame show.
All right, Adam Kaplan, give us a little insight on the Eagles trading up and what went into that.
The Eagles believed, talking to an Eagle source, that they thought the Giants were going to take him. They were right in that. Now I got to give Howie Roseman credit in his front office. They knew they were going to take a receiver. The best receiver on the board at 10 was Devonta Smith. Jalen Waddle, depending on which team you talk to, was probably the higher graded player. Well, he went off at 6. There was no question about that. They weren't getting him. But they traded up for Smith because he was the highest graded player on their board. He was one of the top 12 players on their board, by the way. They had the 12th pick overall. So they gave up the extra third. And Jeff and I said there was zero chance they would have 12 picks by the end of the draft.
All right. So they end up with on their board, the best receiver at 10. They probably would have taken if they stayed at 6.
And listen, I understand there's people who are going to be out there saying they could have just stayed at 6. They could have gotten Waddle, for example. But I'm convinced that this organization wanted Devonta Smith for a reason. I don't think it was just because of the fact that the Jalen Hurts thing. There had to be something that Nick Sirianni told them behind the scenes that led them to be like, hey, we like this guy.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine they weren't going to take Waddle or if they stayed at 6. I don't know. Would they have taken one of those guys? That to me would have been interesting.
Or if they stayed at 6, do they take a cornerback?
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier, was that you probably didn't have the value of taking those guys at 6, which is one of the reasons why they trade down to begin with.
But the problem is the Panthers took him at 8 and 9. The Broncos at 9.
Right, but I think the Eagles said, we're not going to take him at 6.
Right.
So we'll get back. Surprised that someone took him at 8 and 9. Okay, we'll take the next guy that we like. But the question is, did they like Smith higher than they liked the 2 corners?
It's a good question.
Jeff Kerr on Devonta Smith. Fit.
When I talked to him about the Eagles, and he said, it's a great organization. I really would like the chance to be reunited with Jalen Hurts again. And just pretty much just those basic conversations, with him. It's like, okay, this guy's a little too excited to be playing with Jalen Hurts again. It's like, did the Eagles tell this guy something like, hey, look, we want you, and we're going to make sure we get you? And it seemed like that was the case. And I think really it was more of, okay, where's Jamar Chase going to go? Where's Kyle Pitts going to go? Where's Jalen Waddle going to go? I think the Eagles were completely fine with Jalen Waddle, but I think Devonta Smith was the guy they want.
Yeah, it seems that way. And that was, Jeff Kerr, who interviewed Devonta Smith on what made him feel that, because he said Smith kind of felt that he was going to go to the Eagles.
I think it's interesting that there was already that connection there between the Eagles and Smith. Smith has insinuated that, he was hoping to go there all along. And you know what? Sometimes if you're in a situation where you have a guy that you want, you just gotta go get him. You can't overthink it. You know what I mean?
Well, and they had the capital to do it.
They had the capital to do it, but they also looked at him and they said, listen, on our board, as we rank these guys, he is very highly ranked. And for whatever reason, I think other teams may have not had him that high ranked. And part of it is because I think Nick Sirianni's here. If Doug Peterson was still here, I don't think Devonta Smith is the pick.
Hey, Adam Kaplan, what if the Eagles stayed at 12, that trade that the Bears made with the Giants? Would the Eagles been able to make that deal with Chicago?
Let's say they were offered that, the same offer.
Good grief.
Technology's a
Let's say
thing.
they were offered that, the same offer, right? Let's say hypothetically they went at the same offer. Yes, potentially they could have 4 first-round picks next year if the Wentz pick converts to a first. But here's the problem. Kadarius Toney is a much lower graded player than Devonta Smith. It's not close. Now, they could have had Kwity Paye. Okay, that was their trade-down possibility as we outlined. Okay, nice player, good player. They need a younger DN. It's a by draft grades. You had a much lower grade than Smith.
So would you have traded up for Smith like they did, or traded back with the Bears like the Giants did? Which of those two would you have done?
I would have traded up because I feel like Smith is a much better prospect and football player than Kadarius Toney could ever be. if you could have promised me you were getting Kwity Paye, I think I would have been a little bit more
Well, you would have.
accepting of it.
You could have, I should say. He was picked at 21.
Right. You could have had him, but
Yep.
there's no guarantee.
All right, there we go. No game night tonight. The NFL draft coverage begins at 6 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. Our draft coverage was brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call to GMS Law with 4 convenient locations to serve you. Online at gmslaw.com. All right. What a day. What a week. Round 2 and 3 coverage tonight. Round 4 through 7 coverage tomorrow at noon right here on 97.3 ESPN. Right after the locker room with the Schweimer.